So, same time next week?
Well, of course.
Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free tips to help you save, go to Feed the Pig.
What the frack?
What the frack?
What the frack?
What the frack?
President Obama, are you fracking kidding me?
Reopen the EPA studies.
In Texas, Wyoming, and Pennsylvania.
Fracking pollutes our oceans.
Fracking poisons our water.
Fracking makes climate change worse.
Fracking relies on toxic chemicals that cause cancer.
Ban fracking now.
Ban fracking now.
Go on. Ban it.
Ban fracking now.
Please.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. You know, but it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, you know, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
At Earth Justice, we defend the environment in the courtroom. Join our fight. When you take a seat, you take a stand. Earth Justice, because the Earth needs a good lawyer.
Just this month, my bill was like $138.
Even at one phone call a week cost me $40 to $50 every month.
I am living on a fixed income of SSI, so this is really a great hardship. Families are being punished. When they incarcerate your children, they incarcerate the whole family.
In 2011, the Media Action Grassroots Network, Working Narratives, and Prison Legal News founded the Campaign for Prison Phone Justice, an effort to call on the FCC to address the cost of interstate phone calls. The campaign mobilized prisoners to send hundreds of letters. Advocates and families filled out postcards, met with elected officials, and signed petitions. Partnerships were formed across the political spectrum and with groups in the criminal justice, civil rights, and public interest community. The film distribution company Participant Media and director Ava DuVernay joined the fight through a social action campaign tied to the release of the feature film Middle of Nowhere. In an effort to push the FCC to act, the campaign hosted a historic rally outside of the Federal Communications Commission where for the first time, families of prisoners, elected officials, civil rights and faith leaders came together to call for an end to predatory phone rates.
All held captive when predatory phone companies gouge our families.
My son has been incarcerated now for over 10 years, and my husband estimates that in the time we spent over $25,000 on prison phone calls.
My hero's not yours, you probably arrested them. Your schools probably neglected them. They spawn thoughts, you probably infected them. Feed us what you feed us, you can lay us next to them. FBI call it major crimes. Babies making babies cry.
We came here to Foster City, where we're going to watch UC Berkeley, a University of California SWAT team, do a hostage rescue scenario.
All personnel aware of the proper protection of witnesses. All personnel identified as staff and role players, VIPs, and support staff. Face, eyes, throat, and drawing protection is mandatory and should be worn at all times by personnel directly involved in or near the scenario. Always check your mask prior to use to ensure there are no cracks and the mask is in safe working condition.
Should I put the water in there now?
So this is like some kind of chemical agent?
Yeah.
Copy, we're ready. I'm gonna get shot. I already know it, dude. Fiend's yelling at me.
Gentlemen, we have a chemical. We need to pull our person out. Get these guys out of here. Pull them out. Pull them out. Pull them out. Put your hands on your face. Put your hands on your face. Keep him covered.
Your head up. He's got a shotgun back there.
That's all right. Keep his hands up where we can.
Hands on your face.
Hands on your face. On your face.
Someone cover me. I got a holster up, bro.
Okay, pull him around the corner. Pick him up. Get him out of the building. Quickly. We've got this. Just get that guy out of there. You, come towards us. Keep your hands on your face. Turn around. Face away from us. Back towards us. Quickly. Back up towards me. Quickly, quickly, quickly. Pull him out of the room.
We're exfilling, Billy.
Yes, we are exfilling.
It was actually around 92, 94. There was an attack on the chancellor at his residence, which is on campus. And we realized at the time that we didn't have any resources to deal with that kind of threat when it took place. So, and I think about 15 years before, they had some kind of semblance of a SWAT team. So they regenerated the idea of activating a SWAT team.
And then since then, you guys have kind of branched out to doing what kind of stuff?
Well, since then, we train for everything. We train for every eventuality, barricaded subjects. Like I said, most of what we do is high-risk warrants.
Okay. And it's something like, it could be like a mugging kind of thing, just like on the street?
Depends. I mean,
like
a mugging, but if it's armed, particularly.
Right, an armed mugging,
yeah. Right, exactly. Okay. And then, obviously, we're looking for training for anything else that we might be faced with. And that's what's great about Urban Shield is, we couldn't duplicate this on our own.
Broadcasting around the nation, on your radio, on your TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
Yes, it is the Bill Press Show here on a Monday, live. Bill is out this week. Bill's in Cuba this week. Cuba. In case the lefto, commo, pinko, Marxist Bill Press wasn't already liberal enough. He's in Cuba, of all places. So you're stuck with me today, Peter Ogburn, sitting in all day long. Bill will be back next week, Lord willing, and the creek don't rise. So what a weekend. What a weekend. We're going to get into all of the weekend happenings, but first a quick hello to the team. Elisa Murphy, hello, happy Monday.
Hey, happy Monday. Good to see you.
Thanks for being here. We'll get to Jamie Benson in a second. Because I brought him in studio with me because I got to talk to him about some stuff. If you're watching us, you can watch us on Free Speech TV on the DirecTV or Dish Network. You can also stream live video. YouTube.com/TawkrTV, TAWKR-TV is where you can watch the show. Of course, you can hear us on your favorite progressive talk radio station or on the TuneIn app using the Progressive Voices channel, the iHeartRadio app. You can stream audio from our website at BillPressShow.com. Tweeting at BP Show. What else do you want from us, people? We're giving you everything we got. But if you're watching the show, you're watching it because of the good work of Cyprian Bolding, who is back today. Heartbreaker of a weekend, Cyprian. And the loud groan from inside the video operating room tells me that he knows exactly what I'm talking about. Jamie Benson is screening our phone calls at He's normally in there, but I brought him in here because I wanted to talk some basketball. Jamie, how you doing, man?
Thanks for letting me in.
Happy to have you in. You were at the Wizards game on Friday night.
And not even a Wizards fan, per se.
Yeah.
I'm a Wizards sympathizer.
Okay.
I grew up a Boston Celtics fan.
That's fair.
But they brought in a supporting character this year, Paul Pierce.
Yes.
Who's my favorite player of all time.
Okay.
So I have more rooting interest in the Wizards this year than any other year.
I get it. I'm a Spurs fan. I have been for many, many years.
Right.
But I'm here in D.C., so I root for the Wizards. I was hoping to see a Spurs-Wizards NBA Finals. I'm nowhere close.
Yeah. Again, not a true fan, but Friday was very difficult for even me. Like I know it was tough for Cyprian, but for me too.
Here's what happened, in case you didn't know. The Wizards were going into a Game 6. I thought they were in a good position to win, right? First of all, can we just admit and just own the fact that there was some terrible basketball being played for like 3 quarters.
Some pretty sloppy Eastern Conference basketball.
Yeah, it was Eastern. So I said something about it, and someone tweeted at me, yeah, this is Eastern Conference basketball for you. Yeah, it was Eastern Conference.
Defined, yeah.
Just gross, sloppy basketball.
Right.
But then it comes down. Wizards are down by 3. Miraculously get their hands on the ball.
People had left the building thinking the game was over.
I had one foot upstairs. I was going to bed.
Right.
I was done. But they get the ball. They got like 5 seconds. Here's how it played out. You have the audio, Elisa, of the shot. Let's hear the audio. Here it goes.
Wall in trouble. 3 seconds left. Wall with 2. Here's Pierce, and Pierce gets it away. Good. And it's gone! He did it! Paul Pierce ties it, sends it to overtime. This guy's unreal.
So Paul Pierce gets the ball. No time left. Shoots a 3 from the bottom corner. Nails it.
Sinker.
Place goes bonkers.
It was what should have been, in Steve Buckhance's words, a dagger.
A dagger. What was the crowd like?
I'd never seen the Verizon Center that hype.
Oh man!
I was jumping up and down. I hugged the person next to me. We thought we were going to overtime. We thought this was a storybook ending. Not so.
I'm watching the game and I'm looking at Twitter because I'm the worst person in the world. Like I just sit there and just like look at Twitter and TV like a robot. But ESPN puts out this tweet: "We're going to overtime. Paul Pierce with the 3. Not so fast." Refs go back and look at it. He's got like a fingertip on the ball as it's leaving his hand, and he was flat out of time, and that was it. Season over, playoffs over. Just what's the emotional roller coaster you guys are on?
I mean, I'm standing there like we kind of knew once the first replay went up on the Jumbotron.
As soon as I saw the replay, words were said I can't repeat.
You heard a little bit of a groan from the crowd. Paul was standing there with his hand over his mouth with these sad eyes, knowing there's a pretty good chance that shot didn't count. And him walking out, I mean, he saluted the crowd, threw his headband in the crowd. Him being my favorite player of all time, that was a hard moment. But at the same time, it was a miraculous shot. It didn't count, but it was incredible because it was a terrible play off the inbound.
It is the DCest way to lose. Just ruthless.
And I called it. I said, the Caps and the Wizards, I love what they're doing right now, but it's going to be another year where they just can't get it done.
It's always going to be that way.
Yeah.
All right, man. Thank you so much for the update. I'm sorry you had to go through that.
Oh.
I'm sorry you had to see your favorite player go through that. That's a total bummer. But thanks for bringing it. Thanks for bringing your pain on air for us. All right, now get your ass in there and screen some calls.
Do I go now?
Yeah, get out of here.
See ya.
All right, thanks, buddy. All right, that's Jamie Benson, our call screen. You want to talk to Jamie, you give him a call at 866-55-PRESS because you are going to need to call in. Frankly, I need your help because we're going to be talking about the situation in Boston. Dzhokhar Tsarnaev has been sentenced to death. Something we've talked about a lot here on the Bill Press Show. We've been following it closely with our friends up in Boston, between Holly Bailey and some of our other good friends who are up there covering it. We're going to get another report on it here later on in the show from Boston.com. But we weren't sure how this was all going to go down, right? We weren't sure if they were going to put him away for life, or if they were going to give him the death penalty, and we've heard all these different reasons why or why not. But here we are over the weekend. It was, I guess it was on Friday, right, that they came to terms with this and said he is going to be sentenced to death. Now, I want to read a couple of lines here. I want to hear some audio here in just a second. But first of all, it could take years. This is from the AP. This could take years, possibly decades of appeals before Tsarnaev will be put to death by lethal injection, which is how that would be going down on the federal level there. Then there's the question of martyrdom. You know, being put to death could make him a martyr, could turn him into a situation where other jihadists, other terrorists will look at him and say, this guy's a martyr. This is someone who inflicted great damage to America and will die a martyr. Some people say that this is what he wants, giving him the death penalty. And then there are other people who argue. I'm going to play some of this audio now. I want to start with Liz Norden. Liz Norden. She has, two sons that both lost limbs?
Both lost one leg each.
Two sons, each of them lost a leg in the bombing in Boston. And afterwards, she says that there are no winners here.
I don't think there's any winners, but it was justice.
Okay, now that's going to be a line that you hear a lot when we talk about this. Justice. Was justice served? We need to bring justice to the people of Boston. I fall into that camp of I'm anti-death penalty. And I'm anti-death penalty in every case. I think if you're going to be anti-death penalty, you got to be anti-death penalty through and through, and there should be no exceptions. Now, you're probably going to call in and say, "Oh, what if this had happened to your family member, man? It would be different." I don't think that killing somebody else brings justice or closure any more than putting them in a cell for the rest of their lives. I don't see any reason whatsoever to kill Dzhokhar Tsarnaev. I don't see it. Why kill him when you could just put him away, throw him away, lock away the key? Oh, it's going to be cheaper. No, it's not. There's that argument that's been around forever. Oh, it's going to save us a lot of money to kill him. No, it's not. Again, this could take decades to get done. We're going to have appeal after appeal after appeal. Court system's going to be locked up forever and ever and ever. Maybe he goes down in 10, 12 years. Maybe. But my point is, why not just say, you know what? He's a very bad person, did some very bad things. We recognize that. We're going to throw him in the jail cell. We're going to lock away the key, throw away the key, and he's done. No martyrdom. We show people this is what happens when you come here and you attack us. We put you away for a long, long time and make you sit and live with what you've done. 866-55-PRESS is my phone number, 866-557-7377. Would love to hear from you on this. And I don't want to turn this into a whole huge referendum on the death penalty, right? Because we're all above that. We've all had that conversation, and we all know where we're coming from, okay? We're all going to be using the same old tired arguments. But I'm saying, in this particular case, this man who killed children with the bombing, and among other people, and caused mass hysteria, mass havoc there in Boston, what's the harm in just putting him away, locking him away, and never hearing from him again? What's the harm in that? Call and tell me. Do you get a sense of vengeance? Do you feel like we're getting justice because we're putting him to death? I don't. I feel pretty crummy about it. I feel pretty terrible about the fact that we, one of the quote-unquote most civilized countries in the world. But look, we're advanced. We're we know what we're doing on a lot of things, but here we are acting like barbarians. Oh, this guy killed some of ours. We're going to kill him. Does that really make you feel better? Makes me feel a little gross, if I'm being honest. I don't feel great about it. I saw a couple of people tweeting and say, oh, if not him, then who? Oh, this is the best example of someone that should absolutely be put to death. Why? Why? 866-55-PRESS is my phone number. My name is Peter Ogburn. I'm sitting in for Bill Press. We are going to take a quick break here. We got a lot of other stuff to talk about. We got some more audio to play on the other side. But I want to get your calls. It's important that we get your calls. 866-557-7377. Peter Ogburn standing by to take your calls. Talk to you in a bit.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Now, kid.
Silicon Valley's Santa Clara County is often portrayed as a role model for the rest of the country. The county has some of the highest salaries and most expensive real estate in America, thanks in large part to the phenomenal success of tech companies such as Google, Yahoo, Intel, Adobe, and of course Apple, the nation's wealthiest and most profitable company. But Santa Clara County also has a more unseemly distinction. I'm standing near downtown San Jose, inside what is by some accounts the largest homeless encampment in America. The jungle, as it's known, occupies a 65-acre stretch of creek where about 300 people live in makeshift structures. It's less of a homeless encampment than a full-blown shantytown.
This being the largest homeless encampment in the United States, and with us having Silicon Valley with Steve Jobs and all this cash, we're not supposed to have this kind of homeless problem. You know what I mean?
I done been shot with a pellet gun like 4 times, attacked with baseball bats, my house set on fire.
This is like hell on earth. I mean, this is like something you will not see, and you have to see to believe, actually. It's like fourth world conditions.
Hi, have you ever heard of a place called The Jungle?
Sorry?
A place called The Jungle, have you heard of it?
We're not making enough money really for conventional homes or housing, and we make too much money for subsidized homes. So we're kind of, floating between the oil and the water.
We told the landlady here if it would be possible to continue staying here. She said, no, you got to go. I already rented it out. And we went and loaded things into a storage facility, and it's still there. And all the campgrounds and things that we saw were too far out of the city, like KOAs and that sort of thing. So what we decided to do was to move into the jungle. So that's what we did.
A few days ago, a woman named Lydia Hernandez was robbed inside of her tent. When she refused to hand over the money, the robbers slit her throat. When she still fought back, they bashed her head with an axe. She died a few hours later. Residents say that the police never come into the jungle, so they have to fend for themselves.
There's no law down there except our own, right? There's no law. So we could smoke dope all day in the open. The dope dealers ain't scared because, they're secure.
We go to the Fairmont Hotel and have a brunch or do a philanthropy. That's not going to cut it. We need billions of dollars to go into the inner cities and go into the jungle. Silicon Valley, the Bay Area is known for its innovation, its progressive thinking. It's one of the most progressive pockets in the United States, if not the world, and certainly one of the wealthiest. If we can't do it here, it won't happen anywhere. It's got to happen here.
What the frack?
What the frack?
What the frack?
President Obama, are you fracking kidding me?
Reopen the EPA studies. In Texas, Wyoming, and Pennsylvania.
Fracking pollutes our oceans.
Fracking poisons our water.
Fracking makes climate change worse.
Fracking relies on toxic chemicals that cause cancer.
Ban fracking now.
Ban fracking now.
Go on. Ban it.
Ban fracking now.
Please.
seen on Free Speech TV and online on TawkrTV. This is the Bill Press Show.
It is the Bill Press Show, 22 minutes past the hour. Bill Press is out today. My name is Peter Ogburn, sitting in for Bill. So much to talk about today. Seriously, I came loaded for bear. Look at all this stuff. You can print it up. That's just half of it. But we're starting out talking about the Boston bombing and Dzhokhar Tsarnaev, who was sentenced to death on Friday. This is our first chance to talk about it. We want to talk about it with you at 866-55-PRESS, 866-557-7377. Looks like we have one line open for you to call right now, but let's take some calls. Jessica in Caribou, Maine. Good morning, Jessica. How are you, my dear?
Oh, fine. Recovering from a long weekend because unlike a lot of people, I was at UMass Dartmouth watching my nephew graduate from the College of Engineering.
Oh, nice. Shout out to your nephew. Congratulations.
Well, guess who was one of his classmates freshman year and part of sophomore year?
Who?
Dzhokhar Tsarnaev.
Oh, dear. Oh, my. How about that?
The verdict came down during commencement exercises.
Stop it.
And I got to hand it to UMass Dartmouth because, you know, like I'm opposed to the death penalty. Some people for it, some people against it. But it was getting near the end, and all state campuses are patrolled by state troopers. And suddenly there were state troopers making their presence very well known. Some of the kids were not allowed to start their campus chant, which is one of George Carlin's 7 words, followed by Dzhokhar. But it ended, and there was actually at the entrance to campus a Fox News van, but there were no reporters on the campus. The state troopers made sure that the kids filed out of graduation, all these young people with their various degrees, and pictures were being taken and everything else. And they did not give Dzhokhar Tsarnaev the time of day at UMass Dartmouth on Friday.
Fascinating, Jessica. That is fascinating. Because everybody, I mean, I'm sure they didn't make any kind of formal acknowledgement of it during the thing.
No.
Right, but everybody knew, right? It's impossible to not know these days.
Right, and the student speaker was actually a kid whose parents were immigrants from India.
Holy cow.
And he was talking about how wonderful it was to be in the United States and be an American and what his parents sacrificed for him, et cetera, which was great. But by the end of commencement, when the verdict came down and, everybody's phones were going crazy, but they did not give it a single moment of attention. They just kept all the focus on the people who were graduating and made sure it was happy day at UMass Dartmouth.
Credit to those students. That's amazing. What an amazing story. Thank you, Jessica. I appreciate the call.
Welcome. Bye.
Say hello to Caribou, Maine for me. Wow, that's wild, right?
That's amazing. I didn't really even think about that.
No, that's nuts. All right, let's go to James in Olympia, Washington. James, you up early or up late?
Probably both.
Yeah. All right. What's your take on this, man?
Well, I have to agree with you. I have always been and still am against the death penalty because of its finality. Yeah. It does not seem to me that anyone should have the right to take anyone else's life, whether they have taken someone else's life or not, is beside the point. The punishment should not be the giving up of his own life.
Yeah.
Because whoever's going to take his life does not have the capacity to replace it.
Right.
To give it back if they make a mistake.
Right. And look, and James, you're 100% spot on. And I know that a lot of people will say, this, we know for sure that he did it. He's owned up to the fact that he's done it, right? Like, yeah, okay, that's fine. But in every other case, or in a lot of other cases where they don't admit it, or the case isn't so cut and dry, how many times a year do we have to hear stories of people who have been exonerated and set free after like 25 years in jail? Imagine if we had put that person to death. What do you get? What kind of card do you get for that family? Oopsie, we made a boo-boo. We killed your family member, and turns out we shouldn't have. And not to break it down to the basest of base levels, but like, what kind of message does that really send? killing people is bad. To prove that point, we're going to kill some people. Like, just break it down to that base level. It doesn't make any sense at all. Now, I mentioned earlier that he was going to be put to death via lethal injection. Via Twitter, Phil pointed out, made a very, very good point, one that we've talked about a couple times on this show. Phil says, another issue, feds don't have any more lethal injection drugs. No prospects for more in the future. This has been an ongoing issue. This has been a problem on the state level. In Oklahoma, they tried to kill this guy. It took them 45 minutes because they didn't have the right lethal injection stuff. They're using the wrong stuff to try and kill people. So there is that, too. Just something to think about. 866-55-PRESS is our phone number. We'll take more calls on the death penalty for Dzhokhar Tsarnaev in Boston and a lot more other fun stuff coming up with me, your humble host, Peter Ogburn, sitting in for Bill Press. We'll be right back.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Officer, were you the one who arrested me? Gonna shake my hand? So I got invited to host a vigil called Carry the Names. And that's what they were doing, carrying the names of the people who were victims of deadly police force. Michael Brown, Eric Garner, that guy Gurley. I got a motion from Dragonfly from Stop Shopping Choir, and I started preaching. I preached up a storm as best I could, but about a minute and a half into my sermon, the place was flooded with police, Homeland Security, National Guard, state troopers, and I was pushed over and handcuffed so fast, down in the jail, down in the basement. Before you know it, I was out the door, put in prison overnight. The next morning, I'm in court. The same thing happens. I'm just rushed out of there. Then our lawyer, Wiley Steckler, gives me this iPhone. And there, in black and white, in the Gothamist, a popular paper, is this charge by Adam Lisberg, the MTA law enforcement spokesperson for this grand place. His quote is that I, Reverend Billy, physically attacked a police officer. Unbelievable. The feeling of being robbed of my work and life and identity, just the fiction. I did not touch anybody. I did not look. I know how to do this. I'm trained in nonviolence. I did not do anything. It was right here. It was right here. It happened right here. I was simply arrested while I was speaking and taken away, and that's it. The cold feeling in my city, the city that I love, that city spokespersons whose salary I pay for with my taxes, that they would say this. I could just feel the rending apart of the community, that we are not that close. We're not. They are willing to say this, and they think that they can just say anything about anybody and get away with it. So we have something in the Church of Stop Shopping called radical forgiveness. Amen?
And bankers love their children.
I forgive the police.
We gotta love them too. Cops and bankers love their mothers.
But I'll stay radical.
Mothers love their brothers. We gotta love them too.
But we'll wake up every morning forgiving each other, reaching out, touching, telling stories, having humor, being in a community together, sharing our children, sharing the streets, sharing the climate, being in the city together. But forgiving each other, being grateful to each other, helping each other out, living together, living together.
I got a daughter just turned 4. What do we do in the superstore? What do we do with the blood and the gore? The water's rising through our door. Love our children too. Love our children too.
Amen. Earth-alleluia.
The average text takes your eyes off the road for nearly 5 seconds. At highway speeds, that's enough time to travel the length of a football field. Stop the texts, stop the wrecks.
The most valuable morning radio show, according to The Nation magazine. This is The Bill Press Show.
Yes, it is The Bill Press Show. My name is Peter Ogburn, sitting in for Bill Press today. You can follow the show on Twitter, at BP Show, at BP Show. We're doing what we can here to carry on the show while Bill is in Cuba. By the way, later on, Jonathan Levy, our good friend, is going to be joining us to sit in with me for the final 2 hours of the show. Plus, we're going to be talking to Hillary Sargent from Boston.com about the situation in Boston and the death penalty for Dzhokhar Tsarnaev. And a lot of other good stuff all throughout the program. But we are talking about the Boston bomber and the fact that he has been sentenced to death. In fact, right now on Fox News, yeah, we have Fox News on, whatever. Fox News says Boston appeals could last 18 years is how long it would take before how long it could take before we actually finally put him to death because of all of the appeals and things like that. So that's my question to you at 866-55-PRESS, whether or not putting him to death is a good thing. I say no. I say put him in a jail cell, lock him up, throw away the key, be done with him. Who? Dzhokhar who? No, we have no idea. We don't make him into a martyr. We just quietly send him away, good riddance, farewell, done. Instead, we're going to have 18 years of hearing about him and the appeals court and fighting and all of this until we finally, depends on who you ask. On one hand, we serve justice by putting him to death. On the other hand, we turn him into a martyr by putting him to death. And that's my question to you, 866-55-PRESS. Helen in Ithaca. Hello, Helen.
Hey, good morning, Peter and crew.
Good morning, my darling. What's your take on this?
I've always been against the death penalty, and it's not because I'm prejudiced or brainwashed, but I mean it is not a deterrent. It costs more money, and for these people who are pounding their fist and insisting on punishment, why don't we? I didn't know that this guy went to Dartmouth. Why don't we, when people become in prison, instead of just making license plates, they have to earn their keep, put them to work, and have them do something productive for society. And then these people that want punishment, here, taxpayers, you're getting something for your buck, And,
I want to pull up the clip from the police commissioner, William Evans, the first clip, if you could grab that, Elisa, because he talks about, first of all, about justice being served, but about the fact that he is a Catholic, and he says that this would send a message.
Whether you're for the death penalty or not, which is, a lot of us have trouble coming to that, I think we send a clear message that we're not going to tolerate terrorism in our country, and I think that's what we take out of this.
But what difference, would the message be any different if someone was to say, you're going to jail forever and ever, amen, no one's ever going to hear from you ever again? Is that message any different? I don't think so. 866-55-PRESS. Let's go to Carl in Chicago. Carl, thank you for calling the Bill Press Show. Hey now, Carl.
Hello, happy Monday.
Happy Monday, Carl. What's happening?
I just wanted to say that, we're using an incorrect term when we say we're sentencing him to death. Because actually what we're doing is we're sending him to his afterlife.
And
that's all that's happening. He's not doing good in this life, and we're sending him to an earlier trip to his afterlife.
All right, thanks, Carl. I appreciate the call. I don't know what the hell you're talking about. We're not sending him to his afterlife. We're putting him to death, right? I don't know what you believe in and where we're sending him. It depends, right? I think you put him to death, he goes to a box, and his memory lives on through jihadists and Islamic terrorists, however you want to put it. But he becomes someone who could be martyred. 866-55-PRESS. We're not going to spend all day on this. I'm ready to move on. Elisa in there. Oh, are you ready to another? We have another caller. All right, we'll take one more call on this, and then we'll be done. 866-55-PRESS is our phone number. You can always reach out and touch us that way. But who do we have? We got somebody? Yeah, let's do it. Let's go to Sharon. Can we go to Sharon in Kalamazoo, Michigan? Is she there? Because I'll take one more call on this. All right, well, let's move on. Because I want to get into some... Oh, is she there? Okay, let's go to Sharon then. Come on, let's go to Sharon.
Hey, good morning.
Hey, Sharon. What's happening?
Well, I'm not a proponent of the death penalty at all.
Right.
But my thoughts have been with those 12 people on the jury that if they, if any of them would have, because they, go through and they ask each one how they, decided or, pro or con and all this sort of stuff. If they're from, that pool of people in that area, I just can't imagine what would have had. They would have had to pull their phone lines and everything else if they wouldn't have, decided, because it was atrocious. But I don't think the death penalty is, the way to resolve things. It's been proven for decades that it is no deterrent.
Yeah. No, I agree. If that's the big argument, right? Let's get past this idea that the death penalty is a deterrent, right? Like, that's an old line that people use forever and ever and ever. Oh, the death penalty is a deterrent, shows other people what will happen if they do these horrible crimes. No, it doesn't. We can move on past that. And what's interesting is even the advocates for the death penalty have kind of moved on from that talking point, because it's clear that that's not the case. All you hear now is like, oh, this is justice. We're not happy about it, but we came to a conclusion. This is a very difficult time, but we got a resolution in this case, right? Like, all the talking points, all the people that you hear talking now, they're all talking about how there's been closure for them. Like, killing somebody brings you the closure.
What was amazing, too, is that family that lost their 8-year-old.
Yeah.
And they came out saying, they don't want him to die.
That's
and
right.
Who knows if they can have any more kids? I mean, and to have that type of mercy is amazing.
That's right. And these people that say, "Oh, you have you ever had anybody close to you murdered, or have you ever had anybody close to you be the victim of a violent act?" Maybe not, right? But then the answer is always like, "Oh, well, it would be different if it happened to you or your loved one or your family." No, maybe it wouldn't. I know it wouldn't for me. I'm anti-death penalty through and through. You look at Martin Richard, this little kid who died, and his family, his parents came out and said, no, we're against death penalty. Isn't that crazy? Yeah, talk about mercy. My God. What do I do? You take one more call on this? Let's go to Alberto. Let's go to Alberto in Chicago. Hey, now.
How's it going?
Good, man. What's your take on this, Alberto?
You know what? Thanks for having me on, but I was just actually thinking, I completely oppose the death penalty, but I also understand that, for individuals such as him, what could happen to him, being in prison? He could be beaten to death, or he could even, the things that could happen to him while he's incarcerated, and even him dying by, getting stabbed or something like that would only also make him a martyr. So I kind of, like I said, I oppose the death penalty, but I also understand that with certain people, maybe it's the best option only for the fact that, the type of treatment he could be getting while he's incarcerated.
It's two totally different things, Alberto. I hear what you're saying. You're right. If he goes to prison, there's no guarantee that he won't get shanked and put down by an inmate. Could very well happen. I would say the likelihood of that happening to him is probably, pretty great, because there are a lot of people who would want to see him go down. But I also think that he would be in a situation where he's locked up by himself, rarely sees other inmates. I don't know that opportunity would exist. Look, this guy goes down, this guy dies, I ain't going to shed any tears. That's not my point. My point is we, as a nation, because this is a federal jury, as a nation, have come out and said, we want this man to die by our hands. We, you, me, everybody, we're killing this guy. And whether or not you like it or not, it's going to happen. And it might not happen anytime soon, but we're killing this guy. You are. I am. And I'm not okay with that. 866-55-PRESS is our phone number. Let's take a quick break. The Bill Press Show. My name is Peter Ogburn, sitting in for Bill Press. We'll be right back.
This is the Bill Press Show.
When I started learning about nutrition, about which, by the way, much less is known than you might think, I learned that what mattered most about one's health was not necessarily the nutrients, good or bad, that you were consuming or staying away from, or even the calorie counts. But what predicted a healthy diet more than anything else is the fact that it was being cooked by a human being and not a corporation. Corporations cook very differently than people do. They use vast amounts of salt, fat, and sugar, much more than you would ever use in your own cooking. And the reason they do that is those are three incredibly attractive and incredibly cheap ingredients. And when they're layered properly, as in a chip or pastries and forms of junk food, they're incredibly addictive. They really press our buttons. They activate our dopamine network, our cravings. And in fact, people in the industry, they don't talk about addiction in the food industry, even though they traffic in addiction. They talk about craveability. It's the same thing. And snackability is another term they use, which is a lovely word. And then the last point about corporate cooking that's important to understand is they cook different stuff than you do at home. What they're good at, in general, they don't cook that well, but things like chips, they cook incredibly well. And here's a classic food that if you make it yourself, if you've ever made French fries, you have to wash the potatoes, you have to peel the potatoes, you have to slice the potatoes, you have to fry them in a lot of oil, you have to spatter your entire stovetop, you have to clean up, and then you have this pot of oil you have to get rid of. I mean, it's really difficult, and it's a pain. They're wonderful, but it's a pain. And if you make them yourself, you'll only eat them every 6 weeks, 2 months, because it's too much work. But when you let corporations cook for you, it's so simple and so inexpensive, and they're really good, that you will have them twice a day, as many people in America do. So you see the kinds of foods you end up with are these labor-intensive foods and desserts. These special occasion foods become everyday foods when we let industry cook for us. Eat anything you want, just cook it yourself.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. You know, but it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, you know, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
On your radio, on TV, and online. This is the Bill Press Show.
Yes, it is the Bill Press Show. My name is Peter Ogburn, sitting in for Bill Press today, 46 minutes past the hour. To the cornfields of Iowa we go. You went around. We used to do these NFL film takeoffs of the election. I think it was the last campaign where all the different stops, we would do these like John Facenda NFL films, the frozen tundra, for all the different primaries. It was pretty great.
It's exciting stuff.
It was good. To the cornfields of Iowa, where the corn grows as high as an elephant's eye. The Lincoln Dinner. Let's get an update on 2016 with our buddy Alex Roarty. He joins us on the phone. He's chief political correspondent for National Journal's Hotline. Alex, good morning. Thank you so much for being here, man.
Oh, thanks for having me on, guys.
So let's jump to this Lincoln Dinner in Iowa, which happened over the weekend. First of all, what is the Lincoln Dinner exactly? What's the point?
I mean, best way to look at it is like,
what's the point of any of this? Let's be honest.
It's like an annual get together for that the Republican Party has in a lot of different places that you never hear about in a place like Nebraska, but because it's Iowa and because every Republican presidential candidate is looking to audition in that state, it becomes a big event.
Oh, okay, all right. So did all of the GOP, let's say front runners, or maybe not so front runners, did everybody get a chance to speak? Just about. This is, it's one of those events that you kind of have to check that box, I think, if you're interested in competing in Iowa, or if you're Jeb Bush, and we read maybe not so interested in competing in Iowa, even they will stop by the state. I wanted to ask, check in. I wanted to ask you about Jeb Bush and his relationship with Iowa, because he maybe made some Iowans not very happy recently. What's his stance on campaigning there? Well, we're still trying to figure that out in the media right now. If you believe some reports, and we at National Journal have written something similar, his team is pretty split on whether to compete there. Look, this is a guy kind of in the Mitt Romney mold, who's not going to appeal to either the real Tea Party conservative or evangelical voters, and that makes up an awful big chunk of the Iowa electorate there. And the concern is you spend a lot of money, you spend a lot of time there, and for a guy who's the supposed front runner, he could come in fifth or sixth place, and that's what they're hoping to avoid. The interesting thing is his campaign manager is actually from Iowa, is considered probably the preeminent Iowa strategist in the Republican Party. But despite that, he, in all likelihood, it looks right now, won't seriously compete there. That's interesting. That's an interesting take on how he plans to move forward. We'll obviously keep watching that. One other thing that Jeb Bush said over the weekend and made some news by talking about same-sex marriage. He said same-sex marriage isn't a constitutional right, and came out very strongly against same-sex marriage. Jeb Bush has kind of gotten this kind of style about him, right, where people were saying, like, oh, he's kind of a newer conservative and maybe be open to other ideas, but this certainly isn't one of them. Do you think that helps or hurts him in the long run? Well, I think in a primary, it's probably the smart thing, and you have to really carefully parse, of course, what all these politicians say. When he says there's not a constitutional right, he's not even speaking whether he thinks legislatively something should be done to correct it, and it leaves him wiggle room later on, if he said, if he wanted to say, well, the court did make this decision, and I disagree with the decision, but I do think, there's nothing we can do about it, and we should move on, which, by the way, is probably what a lot of Republican strategists hope. Right. The next GOP nominee, whoever he is, ends up taking that position. So, I think it's probably asking a lot for any Republican candidate to embrace gay marriage just yet. It would be a bold position, but not one I think you would expect from Bush just yet. And one of the other questions that everybody seems to have a hard time answering, that every Republican candidate is getting, is this Iraq war question, right? Knowing what we know now, would you have gone to war in Iraq? Marco Rubio was asked this question by Chris Wallace. I just want to play very quickly how this opened up and how Chris Wallace played two very different answers from Marco Rubio.
This week, here's what you've had to say.
Was it a mistake to go to war in Iraq?
No, I don't believe it was. The world is a better place because Saddam Hussein doesn't run Iraq.
After finding out there were no weapons of mass destruction, would you, if you knew that, have been in favor of the Iraqi invasion?
Well, not only would I not have been in favor of it, President Bush would not have been in favor of it. And he said so.
Senator, isn't that a flip?
So there's Marco Rubio trying to answer the Iraq war question. Why are they having such a hard time with this? It's a good question. I think, it's a kind of a classic issue where you're torn between some of the Republican base
and a general election audience. Look, there are still some Republicans out there who still think that the Iraq War, regardless of whether there were weapons of mass destruction or not, was a good idea. And you're talking about a primary where, I mean, there was a race to kind of embrace the foreign policy hawkishness. That's where the Republican Party feels comfortable. Both in the primary, you see a lot of polls even showing national security overtaking the economy as a top issue, but also a general election. Republicans think this is a real winning issue against Hillary Clinton and really up and down the ballot in 2016. But again, you start to dive into some of the details, and this is the kind of thing that comes up. And really, look, the Republican Party in a lot of ways should have an advantage on just broadly national security and foreign policy in 2016. And if you read a lot of the polls right now, they do. But a lengthy discussion about Iraq really is the one thing that can turn that around. And it's kind of be disheartening, I would think, to a lot of Republicans that they're getting bogged down in this issue. And I think it should give a lot of them pause before they really start counting on this being an issue, a winning issue for them next year.
All right, I appreciate it, Alex. Good stuff from Alex Roarty. He is the chief political correspondent for National Journal's Hotline. You can follow him on Twitter at Alex_Roarty, Roarty. Alex, thanks so much, but I appreciate it.
Hey, thank you, guys.
Talk to you next time. All right, my name is Peter Ogburn, sitting in for Bill Press. Very quick break. We'll be right back.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Before now, it's been difficult for criminals like us to know which states have loose gun laws. How would a criminal like me know which states permit me to carry loaded guns in their amusement parks, golf courses, or beaches?
I have some violent friends. We all wear leather jackets and scream at women. And we want to find out which states we can buy and sell guns easily.
CrimAdvisor.com. That's the site to find out where it's easiest for felons and fugitives to buy, carry, and even traffic guns.
That's why I love Arizona, where I can go see the beautiful Grand Canyon and carry a loaded gun without even having to get a background check.
You would fail that background check.
I'm sure of it. Now, what about a road trip? What states can I go to fill my trunk with guns and take it back home for my even more dangerous friends?
CrimAdvisor has a list for that.
That's so unreasonable.
Our traffickers' top 10.
Nevada. What happens in Vegas may have to stay in Vegas, but your guns don't. Bring them over to California and sell them.
The market up there is hungry for guns.
I understand that CrimAdvisor.com will tell me which states really cater to us criminals and creeps, but what about the states where we're not so welcome? The ones that don't get us?
I don't even like saying the name of these states, but California, Connecticut, Maryland, and New York all have laws to keep guns out of the hands of people like us.
I want to shoot California so bad.
Boo, California.
Boo, go home. Wow. CrimAdvisor.com has all this information?
Sure does.
CrimAdvisor.com. Plan your perfect getaway. Oh, like TripAdvisor.
Oh.
You wouldn't let money just blow out of your house. So when your AC or heater is on, make sure the doors, windows, and fireplace flue are shut tight. If you're headed out, turn down the AC or lower the heat by 10 degrees. And always keep your water heater set at 120. A little bit of common sense goes a long way. Get more great tips at energysaver.gov.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello, that's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
The average text takes your eyes off the road for nearly 5 seconds. At highway speeds, that's enough time to travel the length of a football field. Stop the texts, stop the wrecks.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Yes, it is the Bill Press Show. My name is Peter Ogburn, sitting in for Bill Press today. We spent a lot of time talking about the GOP Republican hopefuls with Alex Roarty in the previous segment. I didn't get a chance to mention this, but over the weekend, yesterday, Bernie Sanders says he's going to introduce a bill to make college tuition free. Free college here in America. And Bernie Sanders' statement said, countries like Germany, Denmark, Sweden, and many more are providing free or inexpensive higher education for the young people. Is what his statement says. Which is great.
That's awesome.
But Obama was talking about like free community college. No. Bernie Sanders like free college across the board. Anyway, we'll talk about that and much, much more with Jonathan Levy, our good friend, joins me in studio for the rest of the program. Make sure you're watching and listening. We'll be right back.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Tune into Free Speech TV for Democracy Now!, a national, independent, award-winning news program bringing you people and perspectives rarely seen on corporate media.
I'm the retired bishop with the Episcopal Church as the bishop for all chaplains in federal service. I read that there was a group of people that represented a sense of injustice that I had. We'd lost Zuccotti. I mean, there was a kind of a hope that maybe Trinity Church would be gracious and give refuge. We picked this day where we would gather and demonstrate that Trinity was closing its ears to what was happening. We marched around the block, and I realized that, my goodness, they're carrying a ladder. And I thought, well, this is the moment. You could feel a spiritual presence. You could feel a certain something. And then the cops came in. It got brutal.
I'm with you right here. Robin, I'm here.
The church needed, in this moment in history, to stand alongside of these protesters. The truth of Christ is found in the pews, is found in the institutional church, but it is also found in the streets. It's found in the honesty and the integrity, the insistence of people that you find in Occupy Wall Street.
Tune in to Gay USA with hosts Ann Northrup and Andy Hum for in-depth coverage of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender news. Watch Gay USA every week, only on Free Speech TV.
I'm a Piston fan. Their slogan was, "We come to work." That's what Detroit about. That's why they used it. It's a team thing. They won 2 championships, a team. There was no star. No mayor can come in here and be a star. It's a team thing. No governors can come in here and think you can do it by yourself. It's a team thing. You got communities. They got ideas too. The only thing wrong with Detroit, people have lost hope here. Residents, city workers, so much corruption. They lose hope. But I grew up here. I love this city. I think it can come back. I've been working for the city 24 and a half years. Within the last 10 years, we took 4 pay cuts, and then an additional 10% wage cut. I've lost a home.
When you take all of the decisions out of the city of Detroit, all of us, then what do you have? Exactly what we got. A lot of problems. Every time the city seems to fall into a problem, it's always on the backs of us workers.
You wake up out of a dead sleep and you jump in
jump behind the wheel and take off driving and try to get everybody there safe, not knowing really what you're pulling up to. I'm not eligible for Social Security, so the pension is my sole salary at this point.
We've been in business here 39 years. We've seen a lot of changes in Detroit. The area was a lot of industry, a lot of city workers. It's getting very tough for the city workers. It's getting tough for us as a business people.
Response times are increasing because of the closing of companies, which takes your insurance rate through the roof. So all the things that affect us affect the citizens.
I worked for the city in different capacities for 29 years. I feel like an old jacket. They use me up and they throw me away. In my condition, nobody's gonna hire me. I'm 68 years old. Half the times, I can't get my blood pressure medicine. It's either feeding myself blood pressure or paying bills.
$754. By the time they take all the deductions for I have my car insurance, my house insurance, and my health insurance taken out. So the time they take all that, I'll get about $300 after they take all that out. I don't understand it. I can't see how the governor's allowing this to happen and what they're doing and they want to blame it all on the seniors. Not only the seniors, but the city workers. And we worked hard. I know I worked hard.
I've been in Detroit since 1946. I was 14 years old when I came in. I don't live large at all. I wish I could. I don't know when the last time I've been shopping. I only get $1,100, and I'm 81 years old. And I need every penny that I can get and that I do get. And I'm very, very upset about the idea of them taking away my pensions that I worked 30 years for.
I think it's terrible that they talk about Detroit like they do, because Detroit has been very good to me.
I have a lot of city workers coming in with their uniforms on, Detroit Water Department, Police Department, Fire Department. I get a lot of people, the Border Patrol come in. So if I lose that customer base, I'm going to be in a position where I might have to close down. If they take away their pensions, if they start cutting jobs, it's going to cut into a large percentage of not only our business, but other businesses that are in the city of Detroit. We're here. We've been here for 26 years. We're still trying to do business in the city.
Detroiters are survivors. They tough. They adapt. But only can do so much when your politicians are ahead of you and we're not on the same team. We're not going to let Detroit be erased, bulldozed to where we're going to fight to the bitter end. Detroit going to survive.
Broadcasting around the nation, on your radio, on your TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
It is The Bill Press Show, live on a Monday morning. Here we are, hosting The Bill Press Show. My name is Peter Ogburn, sitting in for Bill Press today while he is in Cuba. Bill went to Cuba. That's where he is.
Of course he is.
Yeah, because why not? When you're a leftist commie pinko like Bill Press, where do you take your vacation? Cuba.
It makes perfect sense. Castro sits down with Obama. Castro sits down with the Pope. Castro sits down with Bill Press.
That's right. That's right. Stay tuned. Lots of great content coming from his trip to Cuba. That voice is the voice of Jonathan Levy, my good friend, one of the OGs, original producers here on the show. But we always like having you come back because you know more about politics than just about anybody else that I could agree to come in here at 7 o'clock in the morning East Coast time. So
anyone who's not in Cuba right
we've got you. We're happy to have you here. You're here for the rest of the show.
It's always my pleasure. I love nothing more on a Monday morning, getting up way too early, throwing some cologne on, and coming in to stare at your mug.
Can I say, you came in wearing like a multicolored plaid short situation, and some sandals, and I wanted to know how the other locals at Del Boca Vista felt about you getting up so early. Were they already eating lunch around now?
Look, I am the most stylish man at the Early Bird Special by a mile.
The show is over at 9 a.m. Eastern Time. You can go straight to the lunch buffet.
Exactly. When you and I started the show with Bill, so many years ago.
By the way, 10 years ago we're coming up on.
10 years ago. We did not have these beautiful cameras around us.
That's right.
And I felt that now that this is on a multimedia platform, the Bill Press Show, I give the people what they wanted.
Right.
And what they wanted was me in clashing colors and plaids and showing a lot of skin.
Look, when you talk about cameras being on, right, come on.
Yes.
Right here. I really put a lot of effort into this.
I got to say, Peter, the new lack of grooming regimen you're under, it's really killing it lately.
You like this?
I think you may have inspired it, Jonathan.
No, I keep things tight. Thank you very much.
That's the most offensive thing you can say to
neck.
Jonathan. I clean up my neck.
Peter, you are a handsome slab of dad bod.
Yeah.
I am not going to deny that for a moment.
Like that?
For a moment.
Already in with the dad bod stuff.
But right now, dad bod, by the way, is a wonderful new way that we get to call each other fat without feeling bad about it.
I'm just
Being a man is
basking
the
in
greatest.
it. I love it. Never take dad bod away from me. It's not ever. They're never going to let us have this again.
No. This is a brief shining moment.
This is like we get to have this.
No. I'm sexy. I also like that I'm associated with John Hamm.
Yeah, right.
Because of this. They're like dad bods, like John Hamm or Seth Rogen. Because those are the same bodies.
Yeah, that's a pretty wide swing there.
Absolutely.
I'll take it.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, I'll clean this up. Not for today's show, but
on air for charity, Peter.
That's right. You can maybe put the child with cancer. You can make a little wig out of this.
Oh, let's make cancer jokes.
That's not a cancer joke.
Mm-hmm.
That's not a cancer joke.
He's helping cancer.
I'm helping.
You are the Louis C.K. of this morning.
Clearly. Okay. Running the board this morning is Elisa Murphy. Elisa,
hey, happy Monday.
Happy Monday. And if you call the number to the show, which is 866-55-PRESS, 866-557-7377, you will be lucky enough to talk to the one and only Jamie Benson, the new guy who was in here earlier sharing his heartbreak over the Wizards losing over the weekend in dramatic fashion. You can listen to the show on your favorite Progressive Talk radio station or on iHeartRadio app or on the TuneIn app using the Progressive Voices channel. You can also watch the show on TawkrTV. That's youtube.com/TawkrTV, TAWKR-TV. You can also watch us on Free Speech TV, on DirecTV or Dish Network. We're
so
everywhere.
Many options.
We're everywhere. We're like the Coctopus. But we're like the
You're
Billipede.
like the what now?
The Coctopus. You know, the Koch brothers, they reach out.
That is not what I thought you were saying there. So you said you're like the Billipede?
The Billipede.
The Billipede.
All these different legs and channels. You can see us, hear us, find us.
May I
interact.
suggest we take the Billipede back to the drawing board? Brainstorm it a little bit
That's
more.
the first thing that popped into my head. Couldn't be bad, right? Anyway, if you're watching us, you're watching us because of the great work of Cyprian Bolding, who is there running our video operations. So thank you, Cyprian. Everybody have a good weekend? Did you have a good weekend, Elisa?
Yeah, a good weekend up in Pennsylvania. My father-in-law was passing a kidney stone. And guess what? They could not.
Weekend ever.
He went in. I know, exactly. But he went in to have it done, and they could not take it out because it was so big. So now he has a catheter in its place, and he's walking around with a clear plastic bag.
Yes.
Occasionally filling with blood.
Yeah. Oh, cool.
So it was a wonderful, wonderful weekend.
Thank you.
The Bill Press Show, perfect with your morning oatmeal.
Hi, everyone. I had a good weekend. You want to hear about it?
Wait, no, I want to stop for a second.
Too bad. I'm going to tell you about it.
Why was this a family affair?
I don't want to know.
Why were you traveling to
go
watch
in.
your father-in-law pass a kidney stone?
Well, the mother.
What else are you going to do?
Yeah, the mother is in Europe, so I came up to make some bologna sandwiches. That's what they like up there.
Oh.
And spend some quality time. Got to watch the Preakness.
You know what? You know what? Say. You know what I would do? I would be like, you know what? Here's my Netflix password. You can use that. I'm not going up there to do this.
House of Cards can babysit you.
That's right. Like, what am I going to do?
Orange is the New Black is your new wife.
What am I?
I've had kidney stones. They are painful, so I can't even imagine what he's going through.
Yeah, but I don't want anybody around.
Right.
I don't. You know what I mean? Like
I
would
definitely
rather
don't want traveling family for this.
Right. Yeah.
Yes.
Y'all come on up and help me out here.
We are ever so close now. Let me say this.
I would imagine.
Hard pass on that opportunity. No. You know what I did? I went and saw Mad Max.
Oh.
I went and saw Mad Max on Friday.
I've heard great things about it.
I will say this about Mad Max. It is the greatest action movie I've ever seen in my entire life.
Wow.
It literally melted my face off of my head. So if you're watching the show, I have no face.
Wow.
It's gone.
Except for a neck beard.
Insane. This movie is insane.
So this is what everybody's saying right now.
Yeah.
Is I have, on Facebook and talking to friends, it's my nerdiest, but like nerdiest with the best taste friends are flipping their lids over this.
Here's the deal. The characters just show up on screen. There's no there's like zero backstory. You're just forced to accept the fact that you're in the apocalyptic times and that this is happening, right? So you don't know anything at all about any of these characters. It is like, it moves so fast. It's like a 2-hour car chase. And it's slowed down in such a way to show everything you need to see about the movie. And by the way, talk about, I know a lot of people have gotten hot about the fact that it's a feminist type movie. All the best characters in the movie are women, and they kick so much ass. Charlize Theron in this movie, holy cow. A bald Charlize Theron with her face covered in like motor oil, forget it. Like one of the greatest action heroes. It's so good.
And what's most amazing is that it lost the weekend box office race to Pitch Perfect 2 by like $30 million.
Pitch Perfect 2 is a children's movie.
That is so sad.
Is it?
No.
Thought it was.
It's not a children's movie. It's just the people who like it have the brains of a child.
This is an actual conversation that happened over the weekend. My oldest was like, "Can we go see Mad Max?" And I said, "No, it's rated R." And they go, "Well, Pitch Perfect 2 is out. Should we go see that?" And I said, "No." I said, "Why not?"
So you took your kids to Mad Max.
I said, "No, I didn't take it. I just went by myself." But they go, "Why is it bad?" I said, "Because musical theater is stupid."
Oh, no.
Now
it's
look,
stupid. It's dumb.
Look, as someone who majored in theater in college, whose parents spent good money on a degree in theater, not musical theater, but theater.
Yeah.
Let me say that Pitch Perfect has nothing to do with musical theater.
Okay, thank you.
It is about a cappella singing, and I believe this, judging by the previews for this one a story revolves around them accidentally cursing in front of the president at a performance and having to redeem themselves. High stakes stuff.
That is some real drama there.
Shame on you if you went and saw this and not Mad Max. Mad Max is such a good movie. That's all I'm going to say about it. I'm going to leave it there. Go see it. I don't get the Pitch Perfect thing. I didn't get the first one. I don't get this one. Did anybody even see the first one?
I saw the first one.
Jamie saw it.
Did you like it?
That was ringing endorsement.
Yeah. How was it? How did you like it?
It made his voice shoot up about 2 octaves just thinking about it.
That's how it goes. Yeah, everybody has to sing your review of Pitch Perfect in a cappella form if you saw it.
I don't even think it was that successful of a first movie. Like in
they
theaters.
said that this opening weekend made more money than the entire box office run of the first one.
I believe that because it wasn't a big movie. Then it was kind of discovered on on demand and on video. Or videos aren't a thing anymore, Jonathan.
Yeah, the VHS, right?
That's exactly. People were passing around their laser discs.
Either way, my 4-word review of Pitch Perfect 2: musical theater is stupid. Don't think we have to go any farther than that. All right, political news, political stuff from over the weekend. Marco Rubio. I have to play you this audio, Jonathan, because you and I are both audiophiles. Mm-hmm. We love this type of stuff where a politician or someone is stuck in an interview and just can't stop digging themselves in a hole. This is one of the greatest, Marco Rubio trying to turn Chris Wallace around on a question. So first of all, Chris Wallace throws this to Marco Rubio. Let's play the first clip because he shows where Marco Rubio has been on the Iraq war. It's a question that every Republican candidate is getting these days. Knowing what we know now, would you have gone
the one that Jeb Bush has flubbed for a week straight?
Yeah, like he's still flubbing. He's still having problems with. So Marco Rubio gets this question, and Chris Wallace, first of all, played a little brief history of his difficulty with that question.
This week, here's what you've had to say.
Was it a mistake to go to war in Iraq?
No, I don't believe it was. The world is a better place because Saddam Hussein doesn't run Iraq.
After finding out there were no weapons of mass destruction, would you, if you knew that, have been in favor
of the Iraqi invasion.
Well, not only would I not have been in favor of it, President Bush would not have been in favor of it. And he said so.
Senator, isn't that a flip?
Okay, so isn't that a flip? Sounds like it.
Sure does to me.
Okay, so Chris Wallace tries to get a definitive answer out of Marco Rubio.
This is the way the real world works. The president, based on the information that was provided
But she was saying based on the information.
No, but look,
she was saying based on what we know now.
Well, based on what we know now, a lot of them. Based on what we know now, I wouldn't have, thought Manny Pacquiao was going to beat in that fight a couple of weeks ago.
Pause.
Hold up. Hold on one moment, please.
All right, Jonathan, you want to take a crack at this one?
What the hell?
Yeah, right? That's a good place to start.
First of all, let's go back to the idea that George Bush...
First of all, everybody knew Mayweather was going to beat Pacquiao, so that's a given. But go ahead.
I'm glad we've stepped into Marco Rubio's realm of thought process here. Yeah. Let's start with the idea that George Bush would have changed his mind if he had different intelligence. There's been this weird little cover-up here, or rewriting of history as the Republicans answer this, where they go, well, he was just fed everything wrong. They're conveniently forgetting Hans Blix existed. Mm-hmm. A very, very convenient. I mean, the Iraq War was brought to us by people who wanted to go to war in Iraq, and they found the rationale for it.
Right.
That was settled fact by the time Obama came into office, and is now slowly being rewritten because this country has a low attention span. And so I think it's really important to start with that.
Yeah.
The second part is, what the hell?
Right.
This idea that they're trying to split between the, yes, I love war, but I didn't love that war, but I would have loved that war if it had gone better, but I really don't like war that much except yay, war. I mean, it's the Republicans are over a barrel on this stuff, and it's rough for them.
All right, let's keep going with this clip, because there's more.
This is the way the real world works. Now, I wouldn't have, thought Manny Pacquiao was going to beat in that fight a couple of weeks ago.
You got asked the same question, and you said it made sense.
No, it was not the same question. The question was whether it was a mistake, and my answer was it's not a mistake. I still say it was not a mistake, because the president was presented with intelligence that said Iraq had weapons of mass destruction. It was governed by a man who had committed atrocities in the past with weapons of mass destruction.
But what she asked you was it a mistake to go to war with Iraq?
It was not a mistake, given the fact that what the president knew at the time.
No, she didn't say that. She just said, was it a mistake?
That's not the same question. The question
okay, so pause.
Wow. You know what the American people love when it comes to their leaders and issues of life and death and whether or not to go to war? Parsing.
Yeah, parsing of a way a reporter asks a question.
It worked really well for John Kerry, I'd like to point out.
Oh, yeah.
People loved his thought that he voted against the war before he voted for the war, or for the war before he voted against the war. It instills confidence in people.
Yeah.
If no Republican can figure this out, when Jeb Bush, huge difference. When Jeb Bush had this flub a week or so ago, you would think every Republican would sit down and go, all right, we're going to get asked this question.
Right.
What's our answer?
Well, how do we answer this?
Apparently, no one has come up with a right thought. My question is, does the Republican base, and this is a serious question, does the Republican base still think Iraq was a good idea? I'm starting to think their polling must say it does.
Right? There's got to be something that has them answering it this way. This interview is a disaster already, but there's more. There's more. Let's keep going.
But wait, there's more.
Based on what we know now, I think everyone agrees.
Was it a mistake? Was it a mistake to go to war with Iraq?
I'm
asking you.
Yeah, I understand, but it's not the same question.
That's literally where he turns into Curly from the Three Stooges. Like, can't answer the question. He's like, doesn't know how to answer the question. He just stops and just tries to throw words at Chris Wallace.
Mistake for the president to decide to go into Iraq, because at the time he was told...
I'm not asking you that. I'm asking you...
In hindsight.
Yes.
No, the world is a better place because Saddam Hussein is not there.
That's like the third time.
But I don't understand the question you're asking.
I'm asking
Apparently not, sir.
As we sit here in 2015...
But that's not the way presidents don't... A president cannot make a decision on what someone might know in the future.
But that's what I'm asking you. Was it a mistake?
It was not a mistake for the president to go into Iraq based on the information he was provided as president.
All right.
Crystal clear, right?
Clear as mud.
go.
As mud. Let me just say, this Marco Rubio is not ready for prime time.
Clearly.
He can't answer this question.
Right.
And until we see a Republican candidate who can answer this question, and we can get into what that answer is later, let's just have him answer in a cogent way, and then they can be their candidate.
You've seen the movie In the Loop?
Yes.
Like, he was this close to saying, we climbed the mountain of conflict. like, just was so bad. So bad at that answer. We need to take your calls on this. 866-55-PRESS. I think part of the question here is, how does a Republican answer this question and not look completely foolish like Marco Rubio did or like Jeb Bush did? They both came off looking like they had no clue what they were talking about. 866-55-PRESS, 866-557-7377. My name is Peter Ogburn, sitting in with Jonathan Levy, my good friend and Democratic strategist, on the Bill Press Show. Quick break. We'll be right back.
This is the Bill Press Show.
I have run these canyons for 6 million years. I have traveled from the Rocky Mountains to the deserts, through scorching heat and freezing cold, from the land of the dinosaurs to fields of food.
I lend my hand to 7 states, 2 countries, 9 national parks,
and 36 million people across an arid West.
I am not the strongest or the largest, but I am the hardest working.
People love me.
My playfulness,
My beauty.
my power.
My life. But I don't think I can offer any more.
I am tired.
I am tired,
tapped, and tied.
Of the hundreds of major rivers in the world, I am one of the few who no longer kisses the sea.
Battles to harness my soul have been won and lost. Use me wisely, and I will sustain you.
Use me like you have, and I will break. My name
is
Red. The Grand River Red. The American Nile.
The Canyon Maker. I am the Colorado River.
And I am the most endangered river in America.
At Earth Justice, we defend the environment in the courtroom. Join our fight. When you take a seat, you take a stand. Earth Justice, because the Earth needs a good lawyer.
This is the Bill Press Show.
It is the Bill Press Show, 27 minutes past the hour. Peter Ogburn and Jonathan Levy sitting in for Bill Press today. So much to talk about. Let's go to Anita in San Antonio, Texas. Anita, thank you for calling 866-55-PRESS. What's your take?
Good morning.
Good morning, my dear.
Yeah. I wish the question would be, I think the question should be changed from knowing what we know now, should we have gone into Iraq, to knowing what the weapons inspectors knew then, should George W. Bush have gone into Iraq? and why did he hire Paul Wolfowitz, of all people?
That's a good point. That's a really good point, Anita. And especially, by the way, you look at all the people who are with the Jeb Bush foreign policy team, all these people who got us into war with Iraq.
Second verse, same as the first.
Yeah, right? That's a really good point. It's like these interviewers, while they're still trying to maybe play gotcha with these candidates, are just glazing over the fact that George Bush knew what we know now. We knew what we know now at the time that we went in. More talk on this coming up at 866-55-PRESS. Up next, though, we're going to be talking about Boston. Dzhokhar Tsarnaev has been sentenced to death in Boston. We'll talk to Hillary Sargent from Boston.com coming up next.
This is the Bill Press Show.
So this is my computer.
This is your computer. Let's go on the internet.
Let's go. Click it.
Yes.
Okay.
I cursor in between the R and the E. When I say dot, I want you to just push the area.
She's gonna love me all over again.
That's it. Jamaica, here you come.
Here we go.
Good job.
Thank you. Thank you. And I did it by myself. Feel smarter.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. You know, but it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, you know, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
So, same time next week?
Well, of course. Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free tips to help you save, go to Feed the Pig.
All right. I know this isn't any fun to talk about, but we should. Okay. So who's going to do what?
I'll pack the dead batteries.
Great.
I'll only put what I don't need into a duffel bag.
Perfect. That's totally unhelpful.
No problem.
Meanwhile, I will try to comfort everyone by speaking in a calm voice.
And I'll try to get the generator going without any gas.
Oh, let's not forget the cell phones, which probably won't work.
Right.
And who is going to handle supplies?
I can forget to do a list for us.
Thanks, pal.
Well, I think we couldn't be any less prepared. I'm proud of you guys.
Talk to your kids about who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information.
Hey, thanks for stopping by. You know, I followed your character since the first episode. I'm a big fan, big fan.
Thank you.
And listen, your storyline, it makes for incredible TV drama. Thing is, your drug use is very adult content. Too adult for the kids. So I'm gonna have to block you.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Well, have a good one.
You're a nice lady.
The most valuable morning radio show, according to The Nation magazine. This is the Bill Press Show.
That's a fact, by the way. You didn't know that, did you?
I didn't know that.
You didn't know that? Now you know.
Now I know.
That's a fact. It's 33 minutes past the hour. My name is Peter Ogburn, sitting in for Bill Press. I'm sitting in with Jonathan Levy, who you could follow on Twitter at Wolf Levy. Maybe the most metal, badass Twitter handle ever.
Have you ever met someone more metal than me, Peter?
No.
Dressed for shuffleboard
Now that
this
I
morning.
think about it, no. With your plaid shorts and your slides, you came
These
in
are
on this
Madras shorts, Peter.
That's what they called?
Metal Madras.
Metal Madras. Thank you. Anyway, go follow this young man at Wolf Levy on Twitter. I'm on Twitter also at Peter Ogburn. I wouldn't follow me. Frankly, although if you do, you can send me all of your hate tweets. Someone's so mad that I had bad things to say about Pitch Perfect too.
I have no doubt.
Holly just said you're a dope. Short to the point.
She's not wrong.
She's not wrong. I'm a dope on many things.
Yeah, I don't think that's limited to Pitch Perfect at all.
That's what we call an evergreen tweet. Peter Ogburn, you're a dope. Fair. That's fair. All right, so busy weekend news-wise. Started off with the verdict in the Boston bombing case that Dzhokhar Tsarnaev will be getting the death penalty. Joining us to talk about that is Hillary Sargent. She's the senior writer for Boston.com. You can follow her on Twitter at Lil Sarge, S-A-R-G. Hillary, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you. Good morning.
Morning. All right. So talk to us a little bit about the scene when this verdict came down. You were there in the media room, and I'm just curious to see, if this was a shock to people or if people thought it was going to go a different way. Tell us what it was like.
Well, so, this is a death qualified jury, meaning that, to make it on this jury, you had to say that you would at least consider the possibility of giving the death penalty. So, from that standpoint, I don't think anyone was completely shocked. The unique thing about this verdict was that we had to get through 21 pages of the verdict slip before we knew the life or death. So you're going through all these different factors, but the jury can weigh them in any number of ways. So we really didn't know till the very very end of the verdict slip what it was going to be. I don't think people were shocked, but it was, there was a lot of suspense to it.
I can imagine that. And what was the feeling in not just the room afterwards, but sort of around Boston in the days following? Was it relief, anger? I mean, what was the general tone that you got?
Relief from people who don't understand, how many more years this is now going to go on for. I think that it was. It's sort of strange. I mean, Massachusetts doesn't have the death penalty, but this is a federal case. So I think, how you felt really depended. I mean, there were obviously people who were sort of celebratory about it, but I would say generally, I think people have been treating it as a pretty sort of solemn event. And I don't think it's been as talked about around Boston for the entire weekend, as you might think. I mean, I think. We'll see what happens. I think that people have their own kind of very private feelings on the death penalty, and I think that dictates a lot of it.
One of the things that I keep seeing and hearing and reading as this came down was this is closure. We're finally getting closure. We're getting justice. We're moving on. But this might not be all tied up anytime soon, even though we've got this verdict, right? This could go on for a long, long time of appeals and things like that.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think there is the closure in a way. I think just comes from. I think there are a lot of people who had a hard time sort of watching the trial drag on, and I think there's an extent to which this does feel like closure in that sense. But yeah, I mean, I think there, people who are experts in this area say that there's no reason not to assume that he won't still be alive in a decade and that this will still be dragging on. Things take years and years and years.
Yeah, I saw some person say it could take like 18 years to make this happen. But one of the things that also keeps coming up and was coming up leading up to this actual verdict was the martyrdom question. Is this something that he would actually want, the death penalty, because it would then make him a martyr? What's the feeling there?
Well, I mean, I really think this is an individual that we still don't understand, and I have no idea. But I will say that there were lots of opportunities for Jahar Tsarnaev to go down as a martyr in the days following the marathon bombing. Lots of opportunities. There were lots of people shooting at him when he was in a boat. Like he made no effort to do that. So, I don't know. I mean, I just, it's hard to, I don't want to pretend that I can get inside his head.
Sure.
I do think that's the way he would be seen if he's put to death. I do think that he'll be seen that way, but I don't know what he personally would want.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense. There's been a lot of questions raised about the defense strategy of admitting that he did this, not questioning his guilt or sanity or anything, just trying to push the blame on his brother and to fight against the death penalty. And since this is obviously that strategy failed, has there been discussion about, why that path was taken, or if this was incompetent defense strategy?
Well, look, I mean, I don't know that there were a lot of different strategies they could go with. I mean, I don't think he's insane, and apparently they didn't. And it's you'd be pretty hard pressed to say he didn't do it. I mean, remember, there are 30 counts. 17 of them carry the death penalty. So even if you had argued he didn't do these 5, I mean, I don't know what the other strategy is. Their strategy was to humanize him and to suggest that, or to try to humanize him and to suggest that he sort of never had a chance at life. I think that, unfortunately for the defense, most people watching the case looked at the life he had and said, you know what, this actually doesn't sound that bad.
Right.
Went to good schools, like for the most part, was surrounded by friends and family that did support and love him. And so, no, I mean, I don't think anyone's gonna try to make the claim that he didn't have competent counsel. That's not something I've heard. But but sometimes even the most competent counsel can't defend someone who's sort of, I think Tamerlan, in a strange way, I think Tamerlan might have been an easier person to defend because I think he'd probably have an easier time making an argument that he might have been insane.
Mm-hmm.
But the younger brother, I don't know. I don't know what other strategy they could have gone with.
All right. Hillary Sargent, senior writer for BostonGot.com. Follow her on Twitter at LilSarg, SARG. Thanks so much, Hillary. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you. That may be the most metal Twitter handle.
That's pretty metal.
Lil Sarge.
That's pretty great. Yeah, I like that.
Pretty good.
Hey, I have to play you this audio because I noticed during the break that Fox News caught your attention because of the huge monitor lizard that they had on the table. Did you hear this clip from Hannity the other night? This is such good audio. Gavin McInnes is this guy that they have on Hannity.
The founder of Vice.
Yes. He's on Fox News like all the time now. He's got some thoughts on feminism. I told you about how great Mad Max was, and one of the reasons is it has all these women who just kick so much ass in the movie. It's a great feminist action movie. Let's just come back the other direction on that thought as Gavin McInnes is on Hannity talking about income inequality and women in the workplace.
Big picture here is women do earn less in America because they choose to. They would rather go to their daughter's piano recital than stay all night at work working on a proposal. What? So they end up earning less. They're less ambitious, and I think this is sort of God's way. This is nature's way of saying women should be at home with the kids. They're happier there.
Now, that voice that you hear chiming in there is Tamara Holder. She's a writer. Notice who's not chiming in. Sean Hannity. He's just laying back in the cut and just being like, all right, yeah, sure.
Well, Sean Hannity has a long, distinguished history of defending women's rights.
Oh, yeah.
And so, he's said his piece on this in the past. So this guy founded Vice when not the Vice that we've come to know now. This was Vice magazine. I remember reading it in New York in like the 90s. There was an article about a guy who Vice magazine bought him a bunch of cocaine and 300 phone books, and he made a hamster's nest in a hotel room over a 48-hour period. That was Vice magazine.
Vice. For those of you who are just now learning about Vice because they've got this slick, great HBO show, no.
That's what Vice used to be.
That's not what Vice was. Yeah,
it was called Vice because it was about just diving deep into the worst pits of humanity.
Yep, absolutely.
And splashing around. And Gavin just did a wonderful job of splashing some on us.
Get that third clip from Gavin McInnes. I know we're right up against a break. I don't care. We'll be able to fit this in. Because he goes on. What?
You're just such a rebel. You are the
professional.
You are the Mad Max of radio.
That's right. This is kind of like a Mad Max version of radio.
Exactly.
A mile a minute, baby. Let me hear that. Let me hear that last Gavin McInnes.
Most women are happier at home. They are pretending that they like working.
That's right.
They're not making money because they don't stay all night at the office. They don't go the extra mile. They don't work all weekend. You're making a mistake. You would be much happier at home with a husband and children.
Oh, boy. Boy.
So let me just say, first of all, Elisa, thank you so much for coming in. I know how much happier you would be at home.
I'm really good at pretending.
Eating your bonbons and watching your stories.
Can you go to some child's piano recital right now, please? We know that's where you want to be.
I need to hear chopsticks right away.
Get me out of this
Green
now.
sleeves. So this is what everybody wants. Nobody wants to be challenging themselves in a fulfilling career. They want to be listening to children make noise.
To be fair, I am not exactly looking forward to going to any piano recitals.
Unlike your wife, who pretends to like working.
That's right. That's how it goes, right?
Your wife, who works twice as hard as you and enjoys it twice as much, probably, too.
Fair.
Yeah.
Fair. 44 minutes past the hour. My name is Peter Ogburn, sitting in for Bill Press today with Jonathan Levy, my good friend, Democratic strategist. Follow him on Twitter at Wolf Levy. Quick break, and we'll be right back.
This is the Bill Press Show.
What gets you into college? Good SAT scores? High GPA? Lots of extracurriculars?
Sure, but what you really need is money.
If you don't have the cash, you'll need a loan.
And we mean huge student loans because the cost of college has risen 1,000% in the last 30 years.
This means big money for the banks that collect fees and interest.
Now, millions of young people are starting their adult lives with an average of $29,000 of loans on their backs.
Altogether, we're talking $1.2 trillion in student debt.
And more people are finding it impossible to pay them back. Welcome to the student debt crisis.
The increasing demand for higher education and cuts to state funding gave colleges a huge incentive to keep inflating prices.
I graduated about a year ago, currently in $35,000 of debt.
I am in debt about like $25,000.
I owe $23,000.
I owe over $50,000 in student loans.
38.8 million Americans owe money on a student loan. And the biggest names in banking are making huge profits off the booming student loan industry. Sallie Mae, the largest provider of private student loans, made $949 million last year.
They only give you about 6 months to look for a job. You have to start paying back the loan. It's very pressuring, especially nowadays. It's very hard to find a job.
Over half of the students graduating in 2012 could not find a decent paying job.
They either had low-wage jobs or unpaid internships or were unemployed altogether.
So you can't make the payments. You start incurring late fees, which makes the loan even harder to pay off.
And it stays with you for years, even decades.
Right now, a third of the people who started repaying their loans are delinquent or in default.
That's 13.7 million people, more than the populations of Chicago, New York, and San Francisco combined.
Worse, it's not just the borrowers who are in trouble. Many loans require co-signers.
So if the student is unable to pay, that co-signer, a father, a mother, or a grandparent, is now on the hook.
Even a grandparent's Social Security benefits can be garnished to pay the loan.
We should have an answer to this. If you get really behind in your car payment or your credit cards, you can file for bankruptcy.
But Congress has made it nearly impossible to discharge student loans through bankruptcy.
Big institutions make big profits while students try to make ends meet under crushing debt.
Is this how we want our education system to work?
The whole point of going to college is to get the career you want, but lately I've been discouraged because no one can afford school. You get a job just to pay off your student loans.
We need higher education, not higher debt.
Sign up to end the student debt crisis at higherednotdebt.org.
On your radio, on TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
It is The Bill Press Show. My name is Peter Ogburn. Jonathan Levy is also here. We're hosting the show in Bill's absence. Bill's in Cuba, and he'll be back next week. So we've got still lots of stuff to talk about. Holy cow, like 2 hours of the show are almost already gone. It's just flying by, like Mad Max.
How many references can we get in today?
We're at like a good solid 5 or 6 now. I got a lot more time.
You just did really great situational narration. This is Peter and Jonathan. We are in a show. Bill is in Cuba. The show has gone on for 2 hours. It's been fun. Mad Max reference.
What happens is
it's like my grandmother used to read signs around her.
What happens is I don't necessarily host the show as I just read have my thoughts fall out of my mouth in a monotone fashion.
Yes. It makes you sound very serious and important.
We are here. We're hosting the show. It's Peter. It's Jonathan.
This room is blue.
Talk about. This room is blue. We have TVs on. I had to turn one of the TVs off because
you did.
MSNBC kept
showing Mad Men spoilers. So I did not see. I'm a huge Mad Men fan. I did not give up like you did because I have a stronger character in Constitution. And
fair.
But because I was coming on this morning, I did not watch the finale last night. And so what I plan to do when I leave here is go home, sleep for another 5 hours, and watch the Mad Men finale. So I cannot have it spoiled.
Here's the thing about Mad Men. I don't like it. I don't like it at all.
More great situational narration.
Folks,
the thing about Mad Men is this.
I don't like it. I don't like the show. I don't think it has any heart. I don't think it has any soul to it. I watched a season. And look, there are a lot of people whose opinion I respect, which takes you out of that category.
And then there's me.
And then there's you. But whose opinion I respect, who love the show. They think it's great. And I respect it for what it is. It just ain't for me.
It's very smart, so I understand how it's
Fair
not for you.
Enough, yeah.
It's about dealing with the complexities of the human condition. It's about matters that are not neatly packaged and easily digestible by those amongst us who grow neckbeards. And it's beautiful. Keep petting it for those watching at home.
It's softened up a little bit.
But it is something. It's complex, and it's not a warm heart. It has a heart. It's a pretty cold one, and it's a pretty tough look at America.
I like that. But I also think that
it's really pretty.
I appreciate that more than anything.
And John Hamm has the same type of body as us.
They put John Hamm in the dad bod category.
He was the pinnacle of dad bods. It was him, Seth Rogen, Peter Ogburn.
I'll take it.
Same 3 people.
I'll take it. I guess if I was to just go watch the finale, there's no way I would understand what the hell was going on. So maybe I'll go and watch like season 2. Maybe I'll dip
to
a
be
toe
fair,
into
I
those
don't think you
waters.
could watch anything and understand what's going on. I have very,
Well, I'm
very
very
low.
stupid.
I have very, very
To be fair,
low hopes
I'm
of what
very
you can
stupid.
figure out. I feel things have gone off the rails here.
No, this is how we drew it up last night in our big conference call.
Production meeting.
Hey, breaking news! This is a big deal. I'm going to read straight from the New York Times. Their lead, quote, President Obama on Monday will ban the federal provision of some types of military-style equipment to local police departments and sharply restrict the availability of others, administration officials said, end quote. So it's
a big step.
Tanks that we saw in Ferguson, literally tanks, by the way, that were roaming the streets, and these
MRAPs and
these people who are police officers who were out there in like bulletproof vests head to toe. There was, at the time, I remember an Iraq war veteran who tweeted out a picture of what he wore in Iraq and said, these soldiers in the streets of Ferguson are better prepared for military-style combat
soldiers in the
than
streets of Ferguson.
I was.
And let's be, I mean, but that's what they looked like.
They were soldiers.
And this is a big deal, and it's big breaking news that you got here. It's also the most like facepalm thing. Like we're finally getting around to
Finally.
this. These weapons should have never been on the street. This was something that was done, post Iraq War in a way to get rid of some of these weapons. People didn't pay attention, and they're weapons. Right. I mean, these are militarized weapons that have gone into local sheriffs and police departments and now scare the bejesus out of populations instead of keeping them safe.
At the drop of a hat, like there were peaceful protesters who were, and I know that there were some non-peaceful protesters as well, but there were peaceful protesters. Sure, there were peaceful protesters in the streets of Ferguson who walked up against literal military tanks in the streets with a wall of well-armed police officers.
It looked like our version of Tiananmen Square.
It really did.
And it should never be that in this country.
Right.
Ever.
So this is a good step by the president and the administration. So this is good stuff. And he's going to talk more about it today, and we'll have more info on this as we talk about it on tomorrow's show. My name is Peter Ogburn with Jonathan Levy, sitting in for Bill Press. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back.
This is the Bill Press Show.
You wouldn't let money just blow out of your house. So when your AC or heater is on, make sure the doors, windows, and fireplace flue are shut tight. If you're headed out, turn down the AC or lower the heat by 10 degrees. And always keep your water heater set at 120. A little bit of common sense goes a long way. Get more great tips at energysaver.gov.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
When I grow up, I want to be a new pair.
A few years ago, plastic bag waste in our city came to a tipping point. It was clear. We had a bag problem. My department was tasked to reduce plastic bag consumption. We needed to come up with ways to change human behavior. So we asked ourselves, what do people really hate?
Yep.
Getting punched in the stomach. Preliminary studies showed that the consequences weren't severe enough to warrant behavioral change.
Actually, can I get that double bagged?
So we thought, what do people hate more than getting punched in the stomach? Kissing Helga.
Hey, big boy.
People didn't find her so offensive after all, so we had to get creative.
How many bags
Okay, now, pour this ice water down your pants.
We tried everything.
Eat this rat. Defuse this bomb.
Even fighting your clone. After blowing through millions of dollars of government funds on research, I came up with a brilliant idea.
Why don't we just charge 5 cents per bag?
That's a stupid idea.
Would you like a bag?
Yes.
5 cents a bag.
5 cents? 5 cents? Do I still have the option of getting punched?
Honestly, I don't know how everyone else missed it.
Why don't you just get a reusable bag?
May 18th. It's a different, here we go. 10 o'clock, the president receives a presidential daily briefing. Then at 11 a.m., he participates in the ambassador credentialing ceremony.
Ooh.
Isn't that fun? There's all kinds of new ambassadors to India, Malawi, Albania, Ecuador, Brazil, Tunisia, Nepal.
Beautiful pronunciation of Ecuador.
Ecuador. Ecuador. You like that?
It's your Latin heritage coming out.
Clearly.
Yeah.
Clearly. Then at 11:50, the president departs the White House and he heads to Philadelphia, where he is going to be touring the Real-Time Tactical Operation Intelligence Center in Camden, New Jersey.
Which is not in Philadelphia.
Well, he's landing in Philly and then he's going to Camden, I guess. He's going to be giving remarks at about 3 o'clock this afternoon.
That's where he's going to be talking about the demilitarization of the police force.
Yeah, that's where that's going to be. And then back here in D.C. around 5:40 this afternoon. All right, lots more coming up here on the Bill Press Show. Peter Ogburn and Jonathan Levy sitting in for Bill. We'll be right back.
This is the Bill Press Show.
What they told us we were doing was going to rid the state of frivolous lawsuits. So we said, okay, let's vote for this.
Leading up to the 2003 effort in Texas, the insurance companies primarily, but also the medical industry, started this drumbeat. They were alleging that medical malpractice lawsuits were soaring and the cost of healthcare was going way up. They barraged the citizens of Texas with these frightening, scary messages that we were in some sort of crisis. But the reality was that simply wasn't true.
One of the things I think the public doesn't fully understand is that lawsuits are about a lot more than just seeking compensation for an individual plaintiff. By giving damages to the individual, the jury is sending a message about safety to the doctors, the nurses, the hospital. Please change your ways. Make healthcare safer to protect all of us.
Bill and Kelly Putnam experienced a nightmare scenario. They're in the nursing home with their father. The nurse administers medication improperly. As a result, he started to choke on the medication, and Kelly was forced to provide CPR on her father, while staff at the nursing home did nothing.
I was probably 6 inches away from my dad's eyes. He's no longer thrashing, he's no longer moving.
And so they took him to the hospital, they worked on him, cause of death, aspiration. Texas Board of Nursing ruled that the nurse not only did what we said she did, but she also said that the facility had her destroy the medical records for that day and create a new version. I decided to give a lawyer friend a call. I went through probably 10 maybe more. All of them, I got the same letter back stating that because of tort reform, we cannot afford to litigate these types of cases.
What the 2003 restrictions did was make it economically unfeasible for most attorneys to take most medical malpractice cases. It's a cynical attempt to make it harder for people to go to court by making it harder for them to get representation.
I do remember when Patricia Whitman first contacted me, because as a cardiologist, I was pretty outraged when I looked at the medical records.
Patricia Whitman visited the emergency room complaining of chest pains. They look at her EKG. Doctor says, no, you've got indigestion, go home. The symptoms persist. Next day she goes in, sees a different physician. She's been having a heart attack.
Anyone looking at this EKG in a patient with chest pain has to consider that that patient is having an acute heart attack until proven otherwise. All of these abnormalities were essentially ignored, and a diagnosis of acid reflux was made in Patricia Whitman's case, and that was the wrong diagnosis.
The doctor came in and he said that I had substantial permanent heart damage and that I was, quote unquote, 100% disabled. Prior to the heart attack, I had a 3,500 square foot home that I took care of, and I was on my feet 8 hours a day going to cosmetology school. Then I would come home and cook for my kids and do whatever else needed to be done. I did it all. After the heart attack, I couldn't keep up with the house. I couldn't pay the mortgage. My life has changed a lot. I will never be able to do what I used to do. I have to depend on 5 heart medications that I have to take every day in order to survive. This is a letter from one attorney. It would be difficult to prove that the ER physician's conduct rose to the level of gross negligence. No attorney would take my case.
Tort reform involved a specific passage of language that said that a simple negligence standard no longer applied to emergency room care in Texas. The new standard was a gross negligence standard called willful and wanton negligence.
You have to prove in court that that doctor saw me walk through the door and said, that's my next victim. And of course that doesn't happen. And so people like Patricia Whitman, who find themselves in the emergency room and are misdiagnosed or harmed, face almost no ability for accountability. If you look back and you break down the arguments made by the insurance companies and medical industry about the cost, quality, access of healthcare in Texas, by every metric, we're worse off today than we were 10 years ago. It has made life better and easier for a small group of corporate interests at the expense of the rest of us.
These corporations, they have no fear because they know that they're not going to be held responsible. It shouldn't be about money. But unfortunately, that's the only language these people speak. That's why we're out protesting.
We will stand out on the street in front of the facility with signs that state what happened and make sure that they understand that we're not going to go away and that what they did was wrong.
We must restore meaningful accountability in this state so that another family does not go through the same nightmare that they've been through. If enough people in the public say enough is enough, then politicians have to think twice. We're never going to be able to compete with the special interests in terms of campaign contributions and money. Where we have to compete with them is in boots on the ground. The more people that rise up and say, we want our rights back, then they have to think about it. And once we've made them think about it, then half the battle is won.
Broadcasting around the nation, on your radio, on your TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
It is The Bill Press Show, 6 minutes past the hour here on Monday. My name is Peter Ogburn, sitting in for Bill Press today, along with Jonathan Levy Good friend of the show, Democratic strategist. Thanks so much, Jonathan, for coming in.
Always a pleasure.
One of the original producers on this show.
It's true.
When we started the program 10 years ago.
I was a sprightly 13-year-old boy.
You and I spending many hot hours in a tiny room.
A tiny room with a big stack of electronics that made both of our dad bods sweat profusely.
Yeah, a lot of dad bod, a lot of sweating. Running the board is Elisa Murphy. Hello, Elisa.
Hey, good morning. Happy Monday.
Happy Monday. We already heard about how your weekend was.
Yes,
we won't revisit that.
The week will get better.
We won't revisit that.
I do not want to hear that again.
Yeah, it's all uphill from there. If you call our number, 866-55-PRESS, the voice you hear on the other end of the line is that of Jamie Benson, who is standing by to take your calls. And if you are watching the show, which you can do on Free Speech TV, on DirecTV or Dish Network, or on YouTube at youtube.com/TawkrTV, TAWKRTV, you are watching it because of the great work of Cyprian Bolding, who is standing by and keeping us on air. Jonathan, we're thrilled. We're happy to be able to welcome political reporter for Politico, Eli Stokols, for his first visit here into the Bill Press Show. Thanks so much. Yay. Welcome to the Thunderdome.
The Thunderdome. Thank you. It's nice to be in here.
How many is that? Is that like 7 Mad Max references?
You're at your limit.
I saw Mad Max over the weekend.
I was warned.
It's so good. It's so good. I'm not going to try.
It's no Pitch Perfect 2.
By the way, I'm still getting tweets about how I didn't like Pitch Perfect 2. Or didn't like the idea of it, and I also got another one that says I'm an even bigger dope because I don't like Mad Men.
You are a bigger dope for not liking Mad Men.
Tough but fair.
Not liking Pitch Perfect 2, just...
I put him in the same category.
I applaud you for that, for standing up as a true American on that front. Not liking Mad Men, it's just a sign of your weak intellect.
We had to turn one of the TVs off because it kept showing spoilers for Mad Men.
Yep.
And Jonathan was getting upset. You watch Mad Men?
I had to get off Twitter last night because everybody was talking about it, and it's not that I didn't want to spoil the ending. I've never seen a single episode.
Not one.
Isn't that ridiculous?
Okay. Welcome.
So I just felt totally,
I'm okay with that.
Surrounded by Philistines this
I
morning.
respect that.
Just culturally illiterate, so.
I watched the first season and I didn't like it.
Yeah.
Which is apparently a war crime, according to some people on Twitter.
It's not a war crime. It's just an indication of your weak moral fiber. That's all it is.
I'll take that. You know what else happened over the weekend?
Deal.
You know what else happened over the weekend, which is something else that I boycott, is horse racing. The Preakness happened over the weekend.
You boycott?
I don't watch it.
Really?
I don't watch it.
I would expect.
I think it's cruel.
I would expect.
Those horses aren't meant to run that fast.
I have to say, I am shocked to hear this. I would have expected you to put on a fancy hat and drink a mint julep.
Clearly. Sorry, have we met?
Yes. I've seen you many times passed out drunk with a fancy hat on.
So this was the second leg of the Triple Crown. And what's it called? What's this beast called? American Pharaoh.
American Pharaoh.
Beast. You're both a defender and a disparager of.
It's an animal. What? It's not a... I think that's fair. He won. Or it won. Whatever. He What? He won. This is the call from the Preakness. Go ahead.
American Pharaoh is all by himself. He is 5 lengths in front as they come to the wire. And American Pharaoh and Victor Espinosa have won the Preakness over Taylor Bird.
There you go.
The most exciting thing was it was a perfect sunshiny day, and then just about 5 minutes before the race is about to start, torrential downpour rain.
Oh, wow.
And so they were actually running in muddy slop. So it was very exciting.
That sums up why I actually don't care about horse racing, because you just said the most exciting thing was weather.
Was the rain. How long do these things last? Like
45 seconds?
I don't. A couple minutes.
Is it really?
That's about it.
No. So you watched the horse racing?
I caught the last one. I caught the Derby in the airport a couple weekends ago and watched it with no sound. It was exhilarating.
That's probably like the announcers screaming for those 45 seconds are like kind of the draw, I think, right?
So your job at Politico is to cover the 2016 horse race.
That's called a segue.
That
is something
That's a
else.
segue.
Yeah.
No, but do you find that there are similarities? Is this an apt analogy when you watch all these thoroughbreds or lame horses lining up the gates?
Wow.
It's I'm going to extend this as long as I can.
Wow.
No, is there the same kind of excitement around it that
there is among the few hundred or so of us, I suppose, who are paid to cover it. I mean, it has to be an apt analogy. It's been used forever, right?
It is the horse race.
I mean, it's a cliche, but there you go.
All right, let's get right into it. Over the weekend, let's go to, as I mentioned earlier, the cornfields of Iowa, where they had the big GOP Lincoln dinner. Did all the GOP frontrunners speak at this thing?
Marco Rubio did not show up.
Okay.
And there were some folks disappointed about that. This is a more establishment crowd than the religious folks who came to the summit in January that sort of helped Scott Walker propel himself to the front. This is a much more sort of, coat and tie, mainstream business country club crowd.
So Jeb Bush was there.
Yeah.
All right. So Jeb Bush has got this now. I don't know how to put it, but his issues with Iowa, right? Like he's come out and said he's really not going to try in Iowa, right?
He's not going to the straw poll, right?
Well, he's not going to do the straw poll. He spent all Saturday when I was following him, insisting to everybody who would listen that he is going to compete there. And his campaign was saying, or his soon-to-be campaign, they were saying, look, we're here, we're going to play. I think they just have yet to convince people. I think this weekend was really about telling folks who are concerned he hasn't been there enough to say, look, don't write me off just yet. He's buying himself some time. He's promising to come back. He's saying he's going to compete there. I think the question is how much of their resources do they spend there and how much candidate time do they spend in Iowa, because they don't want to, raise expectations to the point where they have to win, because they really don't have to win. They just have to not get embarrassed. But in this field with all these candidates, they have to commit some resources there and be there, or else they will be embarrassed. He's at 5% in the polls right now. That's good for like 7th or 8th place. So
that's what I was going to say. I mean, and also you talk about the field, the Republican field. How many candidates are there, or will there be? Like we're getting getting close to double digits already.
I mean, I've seen the estimates at 19 at the high end.
Yeah, at the high end it could be 19, and so. It's nobody really gets exactly how it's going to shake out. Although a lot of people think the more candidates who get in, it might help somebody like Jeb, who's probably going to have more money than everybody else, especially if in Iowa, say, the social conservatives, the evangelicals on the western side of the state, if they don't all coalesce around one or two, really one candidate, then Jeb Bush or Scott Walker, someone like that could conceivably win Iowa with about 20%.
So on this Lincoln dinner specifically, any big winners or losers? And we're going to tweet out the piece that you wrote about the 5 takeaways from the Iowa GOP Lincoln dinner. Any big winners, losers? Anybody really screw the pooch there?
I mean, Donald Trump was a big loser, but he was a big loser beforehand.
He's a big loser, no matter where he goes.
Yeah, so nobody really expected much from him. I think a lot of people...
How did Trump lose this? I mean, how was he a big loser there?
By going? No, I mean, I don't know. He's Donald Trump. This is a field where I think there's just so many candidates, and the Republican electorate is very excited about having all these credible options at this point, and he just doesn't really fit into the equation. So,
is he going to actually run though? I mean, he does this every year. It feels like. But no one seems to be taking it at all seriously this time.
We've probably already spent too much time. I shouldn't have even mentioned him. But I mean, they all did fine. They, Scott Walker. I think if people were expecting him to sort of, leave them with, tingles down their spine, maybe it didn't happen. But this was more of a, like we said, a different crowd than the one he spoke to in January. Everybody there talked about foreign policy, and he was just back from Israel, and he spoke convincingly and viscerally about, feeling some of these things and having just been to Israel. And so I think people were impressed by him, but no more so than they were also impressed by Jeb Bush. There is a sense in that room that they do want somebody who can win, not just the person they agree with on 100% of the issues, but Carly Fiorina got the best reaction from the room. And a number of candidates.
Let me guess. Was it her line about how Hillary Clinton's not qualified to be president? Because that's really the only thing I've heard her say.
Yeah, the hormones. But she also, spoke a little bit about having been in the room with Putin and in her, her private sector career, having met a lot of these world leaders. And she also spoke, this is a CEO from Silicon Valley talking about foreign policy in her speech. Rick Perry, who's a guy from Texas who has arguably a pretty good record as a governor in terms of job growth, at least, not really talking about that. Rick Perry was also talking about national security. So they're all talking about, in some way or another, foreign policy, because they recognize that seems to be the number one issue.
I think they also probably recognize that right now the line that they've been using for a very long time about how Obama's tanked the economy just rings hollow. As we see these jobs numbers comes out, as consumer confidence goes up and people no longer feel the same hurt they did 1-2 years ago, it's harder to find a weak point to attack them on that feels honest.
Yeah, but they still, among Republicans still believe that the economy could be doing better. Jeb is a guy who continues to talk about the economic growth that he oversaw in Florida and compare it directly to, to contrast that with Obama's record. And, basically he's not saying that the economy hasn't recovered. He's saying, it hasn't grown fast enough. Too many people have left out. We've heard, maybe not as much recently, but even from the Republican field so far, we've heard a little more than we've ever really heard before about economic inequality. So that's interesting because that's something that they, I think, as a whole understand. They can't just sort of leave that to Hillary Clinton and the Democrats to talk about. They have to get that message out also because that continues to be an issue that people feel.
It's a hard spot for them to be in, much like they are on foreign policy with Iraq. On inequality, they are perceived, rightly or wrongly, I will say very much rightly, but I know you can't agree with that they are the party of the rich, and they are the party of the corporate powers, those that are getting richer, that are getting more powerful all the time, while the middle class falls farther and farther behind. So it's a tightrope walk that they're going there. On foreign policy, they're also stuck, as we discussed previously, on Iraq. And how did you see them handling this issue that's come up again so much?
Yeah, we were going to get to Iraq. Yeah, this is a whole new issue for them.
New, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, this question
only
that
12 years old.
This question that none of the candidates can seem to answer. Knowing what we know now, would you have gone to war with Iraq? Jeb Bush got it. He flubbed it big time. Marco Rubio got it yesterday with Chris Wallace. He had a really, really difficult time with it. We played the audio. It takes a while to get through it, but they can't seem to answer this question.
Well, and even Scott Walker's answer that, Republicans seem to like, which is that any president, Republican or Democrat, would have done this back then with that intelligence, which is just categorically false.
Right. Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's not, Hillary Clinton may have needed to take a hawkish vote and for political reasons, whatever. But you can't paint everyone with that brush. There was a lot of skepticism if you go back there. So they all are sort of straddling these sort of dual imperatives of recognizing the utter catastrophe that experience, that whole misadventure in Iraq was, and is now viewed as such by the public. They also have to recognize that within their primary voters, and they want to look at Iraq now and the problems with ISIS and the instability there, and they want to blame it on President Obama. They want to sort of stop talking about George W. Bush and say, going to war wasn't the issue, and the troop surge stabilized things. And then Obama came in, pulled out, and everything got screwed up. And that's obviously something that will be more litigated, in a general election if we're still talking about Iraq then. But that works okay with primary voters. It's just kind of this split stance that there's a recognition, the war itself wasn't the smartest, but they're framing it in a way that sort of glosses over a lot of the problems with the Bush administration and its decision to go to war in the first place.
I wish Jeb Bush so much luck getting away from talking about George W. Bush. I wish him all the luck in the world.
Well, it's toughest for him because all the candidates now, in a way, this is good for them because they see Jeb kind of floundering out there, and he's the guy who's going to have all the money. So it's great to see him kind of struggling with this for them. But they also have to answer this question, and it's not that difficult. They keep mocking him and saying, "Oh, this is an easy question. How'd he screw it up?" And then they get it, and they find out it's not that easy of a question. And with Jeb, what I've noticed is it's not just this sort of family loyalty that makes him even more conflicted than the rest of the field and the name. But Jeb is the kind of guy who he's been away from politics for a while. He's a fairly cerebral guy. And beyond the family loyalty, what I've detected from him is there's this sort of stubbornness and almost annoyance at the fact that he looks at this as a media fixation on him and his brother, and he kind of finds it irritating. He sort of resents it. He sees the media chasing him around and saying, like, what about you and your brother, and where do you differ, and whatever. And he, I think taking 4 days to figure out that I have to give this answer. I mean, the night before, I was talking to one of his campaign communications folks who has worked for him for a long time, and she said, "Oh, he's just not giving the answer you want him to give, but he's giving." And then the next day, he gave the answer everybody wanted.
Yeah.
It took him a long time to
he gave about
get
7
over
answers.
This is an issue with Jeb Bush, I think, that we're going to see play out over and over and over again, because this Iraq thing that he has completely messed up on is not the first time. In the last 2 months, he screwed up the question about the freedom, the religious freedom law in Indiana. He stood with Mike Pence and stood with that law until Mike Pence realized it was a bad law, and they had to go through and change this. He stood by his advisor, James Baker, when he went to go speak to J Street, a liberal, fairly liberal group. And then he backed off of that pretty quickly. The Ciroc thing, the same thing. He's got a history of just speaking and then wanting to get a mulligan, which I don't think is going to take him very far.
There seems to be a communication problem inside of his non-campaign.
Yeah.
And I say non-campaign because somehow Jeb Bush has managed to not announce for president.
Right.
Even though he has done everything to point that he's running for it.
Yeah, I think these days, flipping the switch between official and unofficial, I mean, that almost just doesn't matter anymore. It's
Except
it's just for the purposes of the FEC and fundraising, and I don't think too many ordinary people really split the difference or see a difference between.
But they, that's the point where they should.
But
I mean, we're talking about he has the ability to coordinate with these unlimited super PACs where they can raise unlimited money. Into C4s, they can raise unlimited money without any kind of designation of where they come from.
Yeah, but don't blame Jeb Bush for the campaign finance system as it is now. I mean, he's just, he's...
No, I blame his brother for the Supreme Court that he put in place that gave us the campaign finance system we have now.
That's certainly fair. I think it's just,
He is using it, though, at a level that no other candidate is.
No, that's true, but I mean, that may be smart, and that may be what Jeb Bush has to do to win here. I don't think he enjoys, maybe he does, but I don't think he enjoys spending so much time sucking up to billionaires.
Yeah.
I think, when 20 billionaires can make or break a presidential campaign, that's a lot of groveling you got to do. I don't know if he loves the way that campaign finance is, but he's certainly putting the family network to use.
We're right up against a break, so we're going to take a quick break. We'll come right back, and we'll spend a little bit of time that we do have talking about the Democrats in 2016, or should I say the Democrat in 2016. Quick break. We'll be right back. Peter Ogburn, Jonathan Levy, and with Eli Stokols from Politico. Stay tuned.
This is the Bill Press Show.
They called her Little Sanju. She was born in a village at the foot of the Himalayas, the smallest of 7 brothers and sisters.
My family was very poor. To get by, we raised cows and we made small things for tourists out of bamboo. But we were always hungry, and no matter how hard he tried, my father was always in debt. When I was 11, my father told me I had to go to work making carpets. I had to leave with a man who took me to the carpet factory. The broker who took me away got paid, but they never paid my father anything. I made knots from 4 in the morning until 8 at night. There was never a day off. I was always hungry. I cut my fingers while weaving and had to weave with cut fingers. My hands began to look like my grandmother's. I cried every night. I thought the rest of my life would be only this.
It takes 1 million knots to make one 8x10 rug. In the 1990s, 1 million children were enslaved making carpets in South Asia. Then a hero entered the picture. It was you. If you knew how these carpets were made, you would no longer think they were so beautiful. And if you could choose a better rug, your buying power could end child slavery in the rug industry. From that simple idea, Goodweave was born. Here's how it works. To earn the Goodweave label, companies agreed not to employ children. Goodweave makes conducting surprise inspections. When children are found, Goodweave helps them.
2 years ago, a Goodweave inspector named Grona found me in the factory. When I saw him, I was scared, but Grona put his arm around me and told me it would be okay. Grona took me to Hamro Gar, a home for rescued carpet kids run by Goodweave. I'm the first person in my family to ever go to school.
Today, thousands of children like Sanju have been educated and rescued by Goodweave. And because you chose the Good Weave label, 3/4 of those million children weaving carpets are now free. And Sanju, with Good Weave support, she's able to attend her village school and live at home where she belongs. Now that's a beautiful rug that tells a beautiful story. Stand with Sanju. Insist on the Good Weave label.
The average text takes your eyes off the road for nearly 5 seconds. At highway speeds, that's enough time to travel the length of a football field. Stop the texts, stop the wrecks.
This is the Bill Press Show.
It is the Bill Press Show. Peter Ogren and Jonathan Levy sitting in for Bill Press today, along with political reporter for Politico, Eli Stokols, in studio with us. Very, very short segment here. I just need to ask you about Hillary Clinton and whether or not she is the inevitable candidate that everyone thinks that she is.
Yep.
Okay, thank you very much, Eli Stokols. Great segment here on the Bill Press Show.
I mean, who else is out there, right?
There's Bernie, there's Martin O'Malley.
They're going to push her a little bit on some policy, but that's really about it, I think.
Yeah, it's going to be pretty uneventful, I think. Yeah. All right, great stuff. Make sure you follow Eli Stokols on Twitter, Eli Stokols, Stokols. And we've got a lot more show coming up here on the Bill Press Show. Peter Ogren and Jonathan Levy sitting in. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
This is the Bill Press Show.
This is my computer.
This is your computer. Let's go on the internet.
Let's go. Click it.
Yes.
Okay.
I cursor in between the R and the E. Pressing dot, I want you to just push the period.
She's gonna love me all over again.
That's it. Jamaica, here you go.
Here we go.
Good job.
Thank you. Thank you. And I did it by myself. Feel smarter.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. You know, but it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, you know, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
So, same time next week?
Well, of course. Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free tips to help you save, go to Feed the Pig.
All right. I know this isn't any fun to talk about, but we should. Okay. So who's going to do what?
I'll pack the dead batteries.
Great.
I'll only put what I don't need into a duffel bag.
Perfect. That's totally unhelpful.
No problem.
Meanwhile, I will try to comfort everyone by speaking in a calm voice.
And I'll try to get the generator going without any gas.
Oh, let's not forget the cell phones, which probably won't work.
Right.
And who is going to handle supplies?
I can forget to do a list for us.
Thanks, pal.
Well, I think we couldn't be any less prepared. I'm proud of you guys.
Talk to your kids about who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information.
Hey, thanks for stopping by. You know, I followed your character since the first episode. I'm a big fan. Big fan.
Thank you.
And listen, your storyline, it makes for incredible TV drama. Thing is, your drug use is very adult content. Too adult for the kids. So I'm gonna have to block you.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Well, have a good one.
You're a nice lady.
Connect with The Bill Press Show on Twitter. Follow us at BP Show and tweet using the hashtag WatchingBP. This is The Bill Press Show.
It is The Bill Press Show, 33 minutes past the hour. I need a camera just on Jonathan Levy's face.
Isn't that what that
when he
right
hears
there for?
things that we say on the show that he's just like, oh. Jonathan Jonathan's been with was with the show like literally 10 years ago when we started. So he's seen.
I was the first employee after Bill.
That's right.
I was hired before you.
That's right. So you have tenure here.
Yeah, I do.
That's
do what I
you
say.
Bigfooting me all the time.
Exactly.
Peter Ogburn and Jonathan Levy sitting in for Bill Press. Say Bill's in Cuba, which is where any good leftist commie pinko goes on vacation. Now that you can,
you recharge your communist batteries there.
That's right. Exactly.
Extra dose of socialism to make you run faster.
And there's so many things in the sports world that I wanted to talk about that we invited our good friend, frequent guest on the show, Think Progress sports reporter, Travis Waldron. Travis, thank you so much for coming in.
Thanks for having me. I thought I was coming in to talk sports. That's why you invited me in today. No,
sorry.
No. Oh,
What sports could we talk about with you, Jonathan?
I'm a big fan of highlight.
Yeah?
It's the,
highlight?
It's the future of sports.
That's what they've been saying for the past 40 years.
I've heard that.
40 years, highlight is the future of sports. All right, let's just get this out of the way, because just what a brutal loss by the Wizards on Friday night. I know, man.
Still sad. Still
Such a
sad.
sad
It's
game.
it's so Wizards.
Yeah, it is. It's just so DC. So DC.
Like to go from the weekend before where the Caps were up 3-1 and the Wizards were up 2-1 and the Nats were on fire and DC United's in first place and everything is great, and then the Caps fall apart and the
it's
Wizards.
Soccer season?
There was a day last week that there were 4 professional DC teams that had a game.
And we won all of them.
Baseball, we won 2 of them.
We won 2 of them.
We won the 2 that frankly didn't really matter because they
we
were
won the 2 regular season games.
Yeah, they were during the regular season. So the Wizards are out. Capitals are out. What happens with what's left of the Wizards now, right? Because Paul Pierce,
it's the question.
Who hit the big
what do you
shot
do
that
with
didn't
what
count?
is Paul Pierce coming back? What do you do with Nene? You know, he's on an expiring contract. Can you flip him somewhere?
Who had
if
a
it's possible.
garbage
He was
game.
terrible. You know, the real problem is you still have to pay Marcin Gortat for 4 more years.
Yeah.
You know, it's that they need to do well in the draft.
Yeah.
They need to figure out if they want to do anything in free agency because the next
Cyprian
summer
came
is
Cyprian came in beaming. DeAndre Jordan's a free agent. Now that the Clippers lost last night, DeAndre Jordan's a free agent. So that's a big.
We'll
man.
see. I mean, the thing is any big free agent move they make this summer takes them out of the Durant sweepstakes because of cap space, most likely. So, it'll be interesting. I think they'll, no matter what, I think in the East they'll be good enough to be a playoff team next year.
Yeah.
It's whether or not what's the strategy going forward? Is it long term or short term, or a combination of the two?
Yeah.
There are a lot of questions about this.
I'm not so on board. I'm not so on this Durant train. By the way, I know everybody in D.C. loses their S when they hear about Kevin Durant coming to play for the Wizards. I'm not there yet. Look how close we got without Durant. You make a couple of smart moves.
Yeah, but I mean,
I know
they were close. They're
I'm
in
not
the East. They weren't like close to winning the title. Like they were close to winning a second-round Eastern Conference playoff series.
Hey, for DC Sports, that is not
It's not
slouching.
Right.
It's pretty good.
Right, but if the ultimate goal is to win the finals, I think John needs help.
Yeah, I think that's
And
fair.
Bradley Beal showed that he can be some of that.
Yeah, he stepped
but
up
they
big
need
time.
front court help because the front court was atrocious in this series.
Awful. And it's like if Gortat is bad,
If Gortat's bad, you're in trouble because you owe him a lot of money.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Meanwhile, let's talk about the good news here in D.C. Bryce Harper is having the week
on fuego.
His week is insane.
He's this is what they thought Bryce was going to be.
Yeah. This is what we hoped Bryce was going to be.
Right.
For this whole time. He's really turned it
More
on.
than this week. It's been this whole month. I mean,
this whole month. Yeah.
He had that six homers in 4 game stretch.
Yeah, Peter was at.
I was there for the 3 homer game.
And I was at the one right after it where,
crazy.
he was just banging the ball out.
He had 2 that game, right?
Yeah, he had 2
5
that
home
game.
runs and 2.
He was one away. He was a double away from hitting for the cycle yesterday.
Yeah. He's just
look at you with your sports knowledge.
There you go.
I know highlight and baseball.
Kind of the same thing.
Yes, basically.
Ish.
Both about as exciting.
So how good is the Nationals team now? Right,
they're good. Okay. They have questions about pitching. A little bit of questions. That rotation is obviously great.
Yeah.
But with Pfister going on the DL and with Strasburg still kind of a little bit of a question mark. But I mean, look, this division is
the shape of his arm now is actually a question mark after all these.
But the division's no good. So they're they're okay.
Yeah.
And they're going to be fine. I'm
just looking for a ray of hope, man. Come on.
They're going to win the division.
Okay, thank you.
I mean, the Marlins just fired their coach and their manager and installed their general manager who hasn't been in a dugout in 30 years.
How great was that? They almost got no hit and then immediately fired their manager.
Right. And the Mets are the Mets.
You guys having a bad day.
You're calling the Mets are going to collapse.
Yeah, of course, they're the Mets. Like the Braves are rebuilding and the Phillies are. I don't know. Who knows?
Yeah. Every Mets fan's just picked up their phone to call in here and argue and then resigned themselves halfway through the dial.
Like halfway
I think
through
the Mets have a good team. I think over 162 games, they're not the Nationals.
I have to say, in the Mets hot streak they've been on, I have a number of friends who are Mets fans, and they've been happier than I've seen them possibly the entire time I've ever known them. There is some deep-rooted sadness inside of Mets fans that was just alleviated for a short period of time. We'll see how long it lasts.
Yeah,
I hope it does.
Yeah.
For now.
Yeah.
They need sunshine in their life.
kind of enjoying it as a Braves fan, kind of watching how this division plays out in a year where the Braves have just totally conceded it, so I don't have to be like really emotionally invested. Just kind of watching baseball and enjoying it.
Yeah.
And it's made this, what Harper's doing much more fun.
Yeah.
Especially since it started against the Braves.
Well, see, we don't have to talk about that.
Yeah, it did start against the Braves, didn't it, Travis?
It did. Also, Dan Uggla hit a home run against the Braves, which is the worst thing that could ever happen to
Isn't
him.
that crazy?
Mm-hmm.
Like, the Braves are paying him, and he's beating them with homers.
Yes.
We don't have to talk about that.
Okay.
One word answer from Travis Waldron on that one. We'll move pretty quickly past that. ThinkProgress.org is where you write, and some phenomenal stuff in there. I was telling Jonathan earlier, it's like all kinds of stuff that you wouldn't normally see a sports reporter talk about, which is why we love having you on so much. I want to talk to you about this study.
Okay.
That takes a look at what lesbian, gay, bisexual men and women face in sports, what they're up against when they are playing sports on any level, and the level of homophobia that they might face. Mm-hmm. What did this study say?
Well, so it's this first of its kind international study of, I think, almost 9,500 athletes, both gay and straight, majority LGBT, or LGB, sorry. Found overwhelming amounts of homophobia that they had faced.
Yeah.
Like, I think it was 82% said that they had experienced homophobia, to which when I tweeted it out, I got several people who said the other 18 might be lying.
I was going to say, 82 sounds low. Or, excuse
right.
me, yeah.
But you know, so were these professional athletes?
I think it's at all levels.
At all levels.
You know, and the interesting thing is how broad it is at the youth level, which I think is where, you know, kind of, you understand that. Having anyone who's played youth sports, I think, probably understands that. But, you know, that I think the key takeaway for me is that's kind of the area where you got to start this.
Yeah.
You know, the PE class. And those are the places where people start playing sports. And that's kind of the recommendation they made is, you know, PE class and youth sports are these very bad places for homophobia.
Yeah.
And you're turning people off to sports right there. And, you know, we shouldn't do that. The other broad takeaway was that I think it was almost 2/3 said that they don't think that sporting events are safe spaces for gay, lesbian, and bisexual people, which is, you know, should get the attention of the leagues.
Yeah. That's a good point.
To say, look, if you're turning away fans because they don't think these games are safe spaces, that might not be the reality, but that's the perception in those communities. And in that sense, it is the reality.
You look at the reaction that the gay community had when Jason Collins came out of the closet, who was an okay basketball player, right? Which doesn't matter, but he was an okay basketball player. My only point in bringing that up is that he had the #1 selling jersey on the NBA store.
Same with Michael Sam.
Sam.
And you know, Robbie Rogers in MLS has gotten such a great response.
He's dreamy. I mean, let's be honest here.
Yeah.
He's also of the three men that have come out, he's the best at his sport.
Most talented.
But it's a sport that Americans care the least about.
Sure.
Yeah.
By a long shot there.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, I can just speak very briefly to my experience as a young closeted gay male who grew up playing sports, playing soccer mostly. I was not very good at it. I think that has nothing to do with my sexuality so much as my physique and natural coordination. I grew up in liberal environments. I went to liberal schools where I played this, and I was never picked on in any way of this, but there's a language of the locker room that is very, very tough, especially when for someone who's trying to struggle with what it means to be young and gay, where it equates masculinity with straightness and weakness with being gay.
Right.
And it's something you internalize, and it's something I think that falls under the category that gets derided a lot of microaggressions. Because I was never taunted. I never saw anyone really, really taunted. Like, I went to very safe spaces, but it was something very internalized by me that took a while to get over and to deal with. And I don't blame anybody for this. There is a boys being boys aspect of it, but I think what it means to be a boy and to have these conversations in the language we use needs to change. It needs to start at a young age. And there are plenty of ways you can be jocular and you can goof around with people and you can, rag on your friends.
Without calling them a sissy.
Exactly. Without it delving into the level of sexuality equals weakness.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. We've all heard it.
Of course.
We've all heard it. And it's okay. It's acceptable.
I would bet
coaches have said it to me.
we've all participated in one way or the other.
Oh, of course.
Myself
Definitely.
very much included.
Yeah. Absolutely. I think that's an interesting point about when to confront it, when to point it out, when you shine a light on that, get it all out in the open, make sure we know. It's not okay to do that.
Right.
Don't
and
do
I think,
that.
Some of the organizations have done that. The You Can Play, which was involved in this report somehow, I think they were a sponsor, they've run kind of their video campaigns that include high school athletes.
Yeah.
They've partnered with the NFL to reach out to youth athletes. I think you really have to do that. And I think using the leagues to do that is a big thing. And I think the more athletes that come out,
it's important.
Will help. I mean, I think if you look at Robbie Rogers or Jason Collins, or the reception they got from their teammates.
Absolutely.
I was going to say, so many teammates were so positive about these people that did come out. They don't care. Look, I know it exists on a professional level, but so many of these professional athletes were like, we don't care. I remember when Jason Collins came out, I forgot who it was, but one of his former teammates on the Wizards tweeted him and said, hey, congratulations, now work on your turnaround jumper.
Yeah. Well, and
that's what matters.
Right, and Kevin Garnett said, Kevin Garnett, who you talk about that idea of masculinity, who's like the trash talking, the guy we think of as probably the biggest, one of the biggest tough guys in the NBA, basically said, He's here. He's going to help us win. And that's what I care about.
Absolutely. And we're seeing it actually.
I think it has to go a step beyond that.
Yeah.
I think it can't stop it. He's going to help us win. I think you have to go to that next step of, but it's, he is who he is, and we're cool with that.
And bringing it so much farther down than the profession. Showing people when they're impressed.
And I think we're starting to see the way led by a lot of high schoolers, actually. You see stories happening all the time. And this is, the younger generation just don't care.
Right.
Yeah.
And so you're starting to see kids come out in high school. It's making national news. It'll stop soon enough. It makes a difference. There was but about homosexuality in general, that a 20-minute conversation can change people's minds on homosexuality, and the effects last.
Right.
And this is across the board. So when you have these kids starting to, on teams saying, I'm gay and coming out, it does change the culture there. And now we just need to find the folks who are willing to foster those environments where they make it okay to come out.
Well, and that's what I think when you look at this report and it talks about PE classes, this should be on schools.
Yes.
Like in such a big way, this should be on schools to say, like, sports, PE is obviously as part of your academics. Extracurricular sports are part of your school experience. Those should be safe spaces, and the schools should make sure they are.
Absolutely.
Like, it's on teachers, it's on coaches, it's on administrators, it's on parents.
It's on parents.
Yeah, I agree. All right, we just right up against the break, so I got to interrupt. 47 minutes past the hour. My name is Peter Ogburn, Jonathan Levy, Bill Press, order for Think. Travis Waldron.org. Travis Waldron. After a quick break.
Bill Press.
Tune into Free Speech TV for Democracy Now!, a national, independent, award-winning news program bringing you people and perspectives rarely seen on corporate media.
I'm the retired bishop with the Episcopal Church as the bishop for all chaplains in federal service. I read that there was a group of people that represented a sense of injustice that I had. We'd lost Zuccotti. I mean, there was a kind of a hope that maybe Trinity Church would be gracious and give refuge. We picked this day where we would gather and demonstrate that Trinity was closing its ears to what was happening. We marched around the block, and I realized that, my goodness, they're carrying a ladder. And I thought, well, this is the moment. You could feel a spiritual presence. You could feel a certain something. And then the cops came in. It got brutal.
I'm with you right here. Robin, I'm here.
The church needed, in this moment in history, to stand alongside of these protesters. The truth of Christ is found in the pews, is found in the institutional church, but it is also found on the streets. It's found in the honesty and the integrity, the insistence of people that you find in Occupy Wall Street.
Tune in to Gay USA with hosts Ann Northrup and Andy Hum for in-depth coverage of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender news. Watch Gay USA every week, only on Free Speech TV.
The average text takes your eyes off the road for nearly 5 seconds. At highway speeds, that's enough time to travel the length of a football field. Stop the texts, stop the wrecks.
For tips and information. A public service announcement brought to you by FEMA and the Ad Council.
seen on Free Speech TV and online on TawkrTV. This is the Bill Press Show.
Yes, it is the Bill Press Show. 51 minutes past the hour. Peter Ogburn and Jonathan Levy sitting in for Bill Press today. And we're joined by our good friend Travis Waldron. He is the sports reporter for Think Progress, thinkprogress.org. We talked all about the playoffs for the NBA. We didn't talk about the NHL playoffs because, frankly, who cares? I just don't follow it.
You got to get the other
closely.
Travis here for that.
Yeah, exactly. For Travis versus Travis. Talk to me about this new lawsuit in the NHL about concussions.
So a former player who died earlier this year, they found CTE in his brain, the disease that is linked to repetitive head trauma, and has been found mostly in football players, but has been found now, I think, in 5 or 6 hockey players.
This is what Junior Seau had?
Yes. Junior
Seau. We've heard a lot about it in football, but it certainly makes sense that it translates.
And I mean, this is kind of following the lines of the football lawsuit. You know, multiple lawsuits from former players. You know, they facing a wrongful death suit. The NHL is, and you know they need to do a better job. And they're alleging that they didn't do enough in the past, the same way they did in football. You know, the NHL is kind of taking the same tack as football. Now, who knows if they did as much to obscure it as the NFL has been accused of, but
that's what I wanted to ask you. There were a lot of allegations thrown around, and
yeah, we don't. It's hard to know
what the
yet.
NFL knew, what they tried to cover up, but we don't know that with the NHL.
Right. So I mean, you know, but it's still fairly early in the process.
So I know nothing about hockey really, and I don't know. Unlike football, where I understand that the NFL is an evil organization, and Roger Goodall is just horrible. Does the NHL have the same reputation of obscuring other facts and of being sort of this Death Star of...
Probably not as bad. I mean, I think Gary Bettman, the commissioner, certainly doesn't have a good reputation among fans because of the lockouts.
Oh, sure, yeah.
But, I don't know that it's as bad on this issue.
Lockouts were my favorite days of the hockey season.
But we'll see. I mean, it's going to go forward. Bettman has to testify as part of one of the other cases. So they're facing multiple suits, and they're going to keep sort of snowballing the same way the NFL's did.
We'll keep watching it with you. Travis Waldron, sports reporter for Think Progress. Follow him on Twitter at Travis_Waldron and read his fine work at thinkprogress.org. Thank you so much for coming in, man. Appreciate
Thank you.
It. All right.
Always fun.
Very, very, very quick break, and we'll come back and wrap up the show. Peter Ogburn and Jonathan Levy in for Bill Press.
This is the Bill Press Show.
It is possible to read the history of this country as one long struggle to extend the liberties established in our Constitution to everyone in America. In other words, who, according to our laws and culture, gets to be considered a person? The law creates legal personhood, and movements create law and change culture. So, how have the courts passed laws to shape our culture? That history goes way back before Citizens United. 1819, Dartmouth College versus Woodward, Supreme Court case, turned a corporate charter from a government-granted charter to a contract. This ruling gave corporations standing within the Constitution. 1886, Santa Clara County versus Southern Pacific Railroad. Though the court did not rule on corporate personhood, the decision was subsequently cited as a precedent to hold that a private corporation is entitled to the same 14th Amendment rights of due process and equal protection as human beings. This makes it impossible for us to make laws that treat local businesses any differently than giant multinational corporations, even if their business practices are deemed to be harmful to workers, the environment and communities, or if they have a history of violating the law. Hale versus Henkel, 1906. The court granted corporations the Fourth Amendment search and seizure protection. Dodge versus Ford Motor Company, 1919. The Michigan Supreme Court says the business corporation is organized and carried on primarily for the profit of the stockholders. Stockholder primacy is established. The purpose of the corporation, according to the court, is no longer to serve the public good, as it had been. It is now to maximize profit for shareholders above all else. Pennsylvania Coal Company versus Mahon, 1922. Corporations get the Fifth Amendment takings clause, meaning if you pass a regulation that impacts a corporation's ability to make a profit, that is deemed a taking, and they can sue for the right to future profits lost. This creates a chilling effect, and local and state governments become much more hesitant to pass laws in the public interest for fear that corporations can claim loss of potential profits that cities and states will be on the hook to pay. Buckley versus Vallejo, 1976. The Supreme Court rules that spending money to influence elections is protected under the First Amendment, in effect saying that money is speech. Citizens United versus Federal Election Commission, 2010.
Today, the Supreme Court of Chief Justice John Roberts declared that because of the alchemy of its 19th century predecessors in deciding that corporations had all the rights of people, any restrictions on how these corporate beings spend their money on political advertising are unconstitutional.
The court's ruling threatens to undermine the integrity of elected institutions across the nation. It's a rejection of the common sense of the American people.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Yes, indeed, it is the Bill Press Show. 57 minutes past the hour, just about a minute before we say farewell.
How can we be already done here, Peter?
TTFN, ta-ta for now.
This has been
Doesn't
lovely.
it fly by?
It's flown by. This has been lovely.
Let me ask you a quick question, since you're a Democratic strategist.
I am.
Jonathan.
And since you've known me since I wasn't one, you always say that with a little bit of air quotes around it.
No, I don't. I value your political acumen.
Yeah, that worked, Peter.
Yeah. No, now we're out of time for me to even ask you a question. But let's talk for a moment about how we feel about each other. Jonathan, I respect you. Mm-hmm. No, kidding.
Use we statements, Peter.
How excited are you for like this 2016 race? Because we're here.
I couldn't be less excited at the moment. Mm-hmm. The Democratic side's it's Hillary. The Republican side, I'm excited for when they start going after each other, because that's when it gets fun. All the lead up until then is boring.
Very excited for that. All right.
It's going to be a bloodbath.
Well, thank you so much for coming in.
Anytime.
What a fun time we had together.
Always. I feel like this is the end of Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood.
Go follow him at Wolf Levy on Twitter. I'm on Twitter at Peter Ogburn. Follow the show at BP Show. We'll see you again tomorrow.
This is the Bill Press Show.